one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I'm going to wing this one a little, but we're also going to, as always, acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. We thank them for their resilience and guidance and encouraging us all to do the same. With that, I also wanted to say before the roll call and acknowledge the loss of a very beloved community member, Holly Bird. We always think we have a lot of time with people, and we have people who've spent an entire long lifetime here and done a lot of good, and she did a lot of good in her very relatively short lifetime. Our city and our community have been forever changed because of her presence, and we're all very grateful for the work she did, from most recently on TCAP's board to everything else that she has done in our community, and has left an indelible mark that I think we will all appreciate and carry with us in our hearts. And I'm also going to let Mark speak on this too.
Buju Kenegwea. I asked to be able to say a couple words because Holly was a very close friend of mine, and although I'm not big on identity politics, to my knowledge, I'm the first Anishinaabe person to serve on this commission, and similarly, she was the first Indigenous person to serve on our board of directors for Traverse City Area Public Schools. That's important at a time when the state of Michigan has just released the CMTED. It's a new social studies manual for K through 12 that actually teaches real Indigenous history for the people of the Great Lakes here, the Anishinaabeg. For those who have seen all the media coverage of Holly's passing, you may have seen her wearing this exact same beadwork. And that was a piece to honor the water protectors. There was only 3 of them made by this particular artist. Her name was Christina John, and it's really important that I continue saying her name as she passed a couple years ago from the exact same thing Holly did. One was made for myself, one was made for Holly's husband, and then another individual close to us. And Holly quickly commandeered it from her husband because in my opinion, she was probably one of the strongest water protectors that I've known. A sacred fire was held for her it was lit on Thursday. It burned until Sunday evening. And hundreds of people showed up. And it just showed the impact that she had on our community and everybody around her. And the last time that we saw her here in this room in front of this commission, she was coming in support of her younger sister who runs our children's garden. And the way that she spoke in pride for her baby sister is the way that I knew how she spoke about everybody else within her circle, and always was a big sister to me as well. I appreciate you hearing these words, and everybody here this evening. Miigwech.
With that, we will continue on with our business. We thank you all for being here tonight for that and giving us these moments to honor Holly. So with that, I'll hand it over to Benjamin and do the roll call, please.
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Stanley? Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Werner?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Here.
And Mayor Shamrow?
Here. And before we go through too much here, I wanted to kind of point out something that was caught after the official agenda went out. Consent item number 28, which is the potential addition of a, what do we call it, facilities manager, was actually supposed to be on old business, so that will be moved to old business number 1 and not on the consent calendar, as we're moving into that shortly here. So just wanted to let everyone know that the agenda will be changed in that way. If that was something you were coming here to speak on or curious about, well, that will be moved under old business number 1. And then with that, we'll go to announcements from the city manager. I think.
Thank you, Mayor Shamrow. I just have one announcement, and that is to save the date for the Senior Center grand opening, which is set for April 30th at 2 p.m., and more details are forthcoming in the coming days.
That's great. Benjamin, for the city clerk.
Yes, I have meetings to announce for this week, the week of April 7th, 2025. The City Commission's Ad Hoc Committee on Ethics Regulations will meet on Tuesday, April 8th. That'll be at 11:30 a.m. in the first floor Assessor's Conference Room. The City Commission's Ad Hoc Committee on Complete Streets will meet on Wednesday, April 9th. That's at 10 a.m. in the committee room on the second floor of the Governmental Center. And the City Commission's Ad Hoc Committee for Brown Bridge Trust Fund Parks Improvement will meet on Wednesday, April 9th. That'll be at 11:15 a.m. in the committee room on the second floor of the Governmental Center. The Parks and Recreation Commission will meet on Thursday, April 10th. That's at 6:30 p.m. in the commission chambers. We are recruiting for a number of different board and committee seats within city government, so those interested in volunteering to help make city government work. We have openings we're accepting applications for the Human Rights Commission, Local Officers Compensation Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, Brown Bridge Advisory Committee. Anyone interested in serving on those boards or any other board, I encourage to contact the city clerk's office. We're happy to explain anything or help connect you with anyone that might provide helpful information. And all applications for those are submitted to the city clerk's office. And as far as community updates, I have one, and that is that leaf and brush pickup is scheduled to begin on Monday, April 28th, and that begins on the west side of the city moving east. And so just letting folks know that. You can find out more information regarding the specifics on leaf and brush pickup by going to traverse-city-mi.gov, and that's all that I've got.
Thank you, and I'll just let you keep going then with the consent calendar, sans number 28, please.
Yes, the purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed from it and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests are automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Item 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the March 17, 2025 meeting of the City Commission. Approval recommended. Item 2, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would expand sewer consumption timing for calculating irrigation charges. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025 recommended. Item 3, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which provides for year-round billing for irrigation. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025. Item 4, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances to modify the time frame in which notices of delinquent water and sewer charges must be provided to utility account holders, and to have such delinquencies placed on the winter tax bill as opposed to the summer tax bill. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025 recommended. Item 5, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances to provide for collection methods for non-lienable water accounts. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025 recommended. Item 6, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances to provide for collection methods for non-lienable sewer accounts. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025 recommended. Item 7, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would require that water customers must allow city staff to make changes to their water meter. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 21st, 2025 recommended. Item 8, consideration of amending the resolution establishing water and sewer rates to incorporate a fee of 90 cents per month to be effective July 1st, 2025, for a technology fee for those water and sewer customers who have beacon endpoint meters, which provide features including leak detection notifications, among others. Approval recommended. Item 9, consideration of authorizing a transfer of the escrowed Class C liquor license from La Cuisine Amicale Traverse City, Inc. to Divided Sky Hospitality, LLC, and authorizing the city clerk to approve the registration. Approval recommended. Item 10, consideration of authorizing the agreement with the National Cherry Festival for the 2026 and 2027 National Cherry Festival events, which outlines use of city facilities and personnel, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the required related permits. Approval recommended. Item 11, Consideration of waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing an agreement for professional services for GIS mapping work at the Oakwood Cemetery. Approval recommended. Item 12, consideration of authorizing an amendment to an agreement for catch basin cleaning to extend the agreement by an additional year, which is for fiscal year 2025-26. Approval recommended. Item 13, consideration of authorizing and confirming purchase order for diesel fuel for city operational use. Approval recommended. Item 14, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for fire hydrant markers. Approval recommended. Item 15, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for sludge removal at the water plant lagoon and a purchase order for the disposal of the removed sludge. Approval recommended. Item 16, consideration of authorizing the city treasurer to proceed with the utility customer refund. Approval recommended. Item 17, consideration of adopting to make permanent a traffic control order 722, which prohibits parking on the west side of Madison Street between Front Street and Wayne Street. Approval recommended. Item 18, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 723, which provides no parking this side of sign on the north side of Wayne Street and on the south side of Wayne Street, as well as a no parking between signs on the north side of Wayne Street. Approval recommended. Item 19, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 728, which provides updated signage adding do not enter to the existing one-way sign in the 400 block alley of Rose Street, which is between 8th and Webster Streets, so that signage conforms with the typical installations throughout the city. Approval recommended. Item 20, consideration of adopting to make permanent a traffic control order which provides added signage to reflect the no parking anytime requirements to control overflow parking in the alley north of Gillis Street, east of the intersection of the alley with Gillis Street on the east and west side of the approach into freshwater condominiums on the south side of the alley. Approval recommended. Item 21, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 730, which provides handicap/ADA parking signage regarding access for public use of Indian Woods Park on Huron Street. Approval recommended. Item 22, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 731, which provides handicap/ADA parking signage on the north side of the 400 block of East Front Street at the first parking space east of the intersection with Boardman Avenue. Approval recommended. Item 23, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 733, which provides handicap and ADA parking signage on the east side of South Union Street, south of Front Street at the parking space north of the alley. Approval recommended. Item 24, consideration of adopting to make permanent a traffic control order which relocates no parking bus stop signage for two Beta Bayline bus stops, number 9230 and 9185, on the east side of Wellington Street and on the west side of Pine Street, north of the curve to State Street. Approval recommended. Item 25, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 736, which provides permanent removal of the yield sign and installation of the stop sign at the intersection of Winona Street and 8th Street, requiring traffic on Winona Street to stop. Approval recommended. Item 26, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control order 737, which provides for a time-restricted parking on the south side of Randolph Street between Cedar Street and Division Street. Approval recommended. And finally, item 27, consideration of authorizing a one-year extension to when substantial completion must occur on the conditional rezoning of properties at 523, 525, and 551 Munson Avenue, which would extend the deadline by which substantial construction must occur to July 6, 2026, which is recommended by the Planning Commission. Approval recommended.
Thank you for reading that. And before we open up for usual business, I just wanted to point out to the public, as they probably noticed, there's a lot of traffic control orders on this. I want to thank both Assistant City Manager Deb Allen and Ann Pagano, our engineer, as well as other staff, but relatively newer people to our staff who have not only been tasked with their regular jobs, but catching up on a lot of these traffic control orders that over the change of certain staffing, maybe we're not as prioritized. So it's not something you'll usually see with 10 items on like that. This is just some house cleaning that's going on that people might have some questions about, but it's not usually something that we overload like that. So with that, anybody need anything pulled from consent calendar from the commission? Go ahead, Tim.
Items 11 and 17, please.
11 and 17. Any others? Go ahead, Mitch.
27.
Okay. Any others? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it. Does any member of the public want an item removed that isn't 11, 17, or 27? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as amended.
Thank you.
Support.
All right, thank you. And we'll just do roll call, or not roll call, sorry. We'll just call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So we'll start with item number 11, and Commissioner Warner, you wanted this pulled?
Yeah, I just pulled it because the price tag caught my eye, $78,000. And I get it, making this a 21st century, like searchable database and all, but just with the other needs in the city, I've heard so much in the past couple of weeks about when will this street be done or that street be done, and money's fungible. So I'm not supporting it at this time.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that the competitive bidding process be waived and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a contract for professional services with Whiteman in an amount not to exceed $78,300 for integration, digitization, and mapping of cemetery burial records. Such contract subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with funds therefore available in the Oakwood Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund 151.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Any further discussion on this point? Any?
It's
Okay,
part of our historical record, so
agreed.
I did look at the prices that those people are charging and thought, wow. But
Time is money, and it's costly these days, isn't it?
but with the possible cemetery upheaval coming forward, I think it's important.
Thank you.
One thing I just wanted to respectfully point out is the funding for this is coming from the cemetery-specific fund. It's dedicated to perpetual care and things related to cemeteries, so I just wanted to make that point.
Yes. It's not money that could go to streets or even other park projects. It's
Correct.
Specifically for this property.
Commissioner Warner.
Well, since we're talking about it, I wasn't intending to, but money, like I said, money's fungible, so that this perpetual care fund does not sustain the cemetery, so there's general fund money every year going in to support the cemetery, which is appropriate. It's essentially a city park. So this money, if it were used for other requirements in the cemetery, would free up general fund money. I acknowledge that there is a perpetual care fund.
Thank you for that. I appreciate, I'm with Commissioner Shaw that this is stuff that needs to get done, and we can always what if, but we've got some big changes happening over there soon, and seems like some good timing for that. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
And Mayor Shamrow.
Yes, motion passes. We'll now move on to item 17, which is a traffic control order for Madison State and Wayne. And Commissioner Warner, you had this pulled, so go ahead.
Yeah, Madison between Front and Wayne. Maybe there's a creative compromise in between. I'm not here to wordsmith it tonight, but I'm not supportive of extending this because in the reconstruction of Madison, it was narrowed for traffic calming. But then in narrowing it, we decided we wouldn't have parking on one side, so it defeats the whole purpose of narrowing it. So maybe it's every other block, maybe it's not that first block closest to the hospital, if we feel there's too much parking there. But just to go forward and say no parking on the west side for its entire length defeats the intent when it was reconstructed.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about this item before, or a motion? Go ahead, Heather.
So the narrowing, you narrow a street and you allow parking to make the street traffic slower.
Even slower. Does anyone want to make the motion, or are we moving on from this one? Okay. So, and really quick question before we do that, and I believe we covered this, but it was a couple days ago, so I've not forgotten. Deb, if you could, was this a request from the neighborhood, or was this something that was based on some traffic pattern observations?
Actually, the signs were all installed as part of the reconstruction of the street in 2023, when that was completed. So this is actually more of a administrative cleanup, recognizing the signage that's already in place on Madison. It's just not reflected in a current TCO that's been approved by the commission. So this is making the west side of Madison, for those 3 blocks, no parking.
Okay, thank you for that. And it looks like we do not have a motion, so we'll move on from that item. Moving on to item number 27, Commissioner Treadwell, you had this pulled.
Yes, I don't know if either the applicant is here or Director Warner can speak to this. But I'm,
Sure. Sorry.
yes. Yeah,
Sorry.
my question is, we have a conditional rezoning. No project has started. Do we have a reasonable expectation that the project will be a project will be able to commence within the time frame outlined?
Yeah, Sean Winter, City Planning Director. I can't say for certain. That is a private property owner. He did express to the Planning Commissioner he is actively working on his plans, as you heard at the meeting. But I haven't seen them, so I don't know the scale of what he's trying to build, so therefore I don't understand what the feasibility would be in that timeline. So he has asked for this extension to preserve his right for 1 more year. So the zoning ordinance allows a conditional rezoning. It's valid for 2 years unless they've achieved at least 75% construction. They can ask for a 1-year extension, which is what he is asking for. They need to submit in writing within 60 days, which he has done. And it needs to be upon recommendation of the Planning Commission, so that's where we are right now. The Planning Commission did recommend extending this by at least 1 year. I will add, it did bring up a conversation at the Planning Commission that they would like to revisit that timeline. The construction environment is very challenging right now, and that may not be feasible in general, so there may be a change coming in the future from that, but for now, it's just this one request.
Thank you.
Yep.
And just a clarifying question too, well, since you're up there. This, as I recall, this came up during conversation during the agenda agenda review portion of the week. This was a project that had a lot of engagement with the neighborhood nearby. It's kind of over, why did I just forget the name of the bakery?
Alagosa.
Yes, thank you.
Or
And
Third Coast
Coast
Bakery.
Bakery is what I was trying to remember. But that had a lot of public engagement on this, and a lot of work was done to make sure that whatever would go in there would fit with the neighborhood and the neighborhood's expectations for the that part of the community, correct?
Correct, and that was all led by the applicant. He was asking to have this rezoned to C2, primarily to keep his tenant. So, or no, it's C1 right now. C1 doesn't allow retail except in buildings built before like 1983 or something like that, and they can't be expanded. So Third Coast has done quite well, and he doesn't want to lose that tenant, but they need a bigger building. So he had to do the rezoning. The master plan supported that designation, but in his attempt, frankly, just to be a good neighbor, he facilitated all those conversations with the neighbors and came up with the voluntary conditions on his own based on those conversations.
Thank you. I just wanted to refresh memories here. So with that, do we have any other questions, or would somebody like to make a motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I move that the mayor and city clerk execute an amendment to the agreement with Empire Sunset Investments LLC for the extension of the conditional rezoning for 523, 525, and 521 Munson Avenue, originally authorized June 5, 2023, for 1 year, expiring July 6, 2026, to allow time for project completion as recommended by the City Planning Commission, such amendment subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. And just a clarification, and partially because I can't get this item to open right now, it is 521, right? It's 551.
It's
and then-
551,
It's
551,
551, okay.
525, and 523.
Just for clarification, that you did everything else beautifully, so thank you. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all for that. And so now we will move on to old business number 1, which is now the facilities manager position, and I will hand that over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Shamro. I just wanted to offer some context beyond just the memo in the packet on why I'm recommending this position. Over the past year, we've undertaken a significant reassessment of how we manage our facilities. Currently, the responsibility for our buildings and infrastructure is spread across multiple departments and divisions, making it difficult to ensure a coordinated, proactive approach to facility oversight. In 1 year alone, the Traverse City Film Festival vacating the Bijou and lease extensions at the Carnegie, property management concerns for Opera House properties, along with HVAC issues at both the Carnegie and 520 West Front Street, highlighted deficiencies in our current practices. In short, we're managing a complex assets without a centralized system or clear ownership. We have a significant number of staff who are able to retire in the next 5 to 10 years and would take with them their individual knowledge of the building or facility that they've been independently managing. We currently lack standardized processes for setting rents, managing leases, handling tenant concerns, conducting preventative maintenance, or even issuing RFPs for tenancy in city-owned spaces, and these have created gaps and inefficiencies. The city manages a substantial portfolio, 191 facility sites and 120 individual buildings, including the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, Bijou Theater, Opera House, Hickory Hills, Carnegie, Senior Center, Department of Public Services, Clinch Marina, fire stations, parking structures, garages, public restrooms, and more. We also share a space with Grand Traverse County here at 400 Boardman and the Law Enforcement Center. Managing this breadth of facilities without a centralized coordinator places a significant burden on various departments. Just a few examples. Human Resources manages key card access and key cards and has been helping with remodeling of internal departments. The Parking Department is managing a portfolio of properties on West Front Street. The Park Superintendent oversaw the construction of the Senior Center, and the Assistant City Manager has been managing leases. It's all over the place. The facilities manager will serve as a central point of contact and accountability. This position brings in covering everything from leases to tenant coordination to infrastructure, maintenance planning, and parking. We'd also like to introduce a ticket system for smaller facilities needs. By centralizing these functions, we'll not only build internal capacity and consistency, but then we've also relieved existing staff who've been handling facilities issues outside of their core responsibilities. I have a few more comments to make, but I would like to just open it up for any questions that you may have of me. We also have our Human Resources Director, Christine Bosley, here this evening.
And so I would say, any questions? Also, if anybody wants to make a motion to kick it off, whatever order we want to do things in for that, go right ahead. I think you had some, Tim? Saw your smile there.
A quick question. I'm fully supportive, but I'm wondering, especially for some of our larger facilities, almost campuses, whether it's DPS, water, or wastewater, how do you see the day-to-day responsibilities of existing staff, how they interact with this new individual as far as balancing? I know they have to collaborate on everything, but
Right.
who's keeping an eye on things and how's that work?
Yeah, so I would envision this person coordinating with each department and each facilities, manager, making sure that they understand what those needs are and working closely with those department heads, especially when we have campus-like facilities like DPS. So I would want this person to reach out to our department, a public works director, to understand the history of those buildings, what are their immediate needs, deferred maintenance, future needs and wants. And it would be really collaborative in that sense. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, I guess, and then that's kind of day-to-day, but say the annual CIP, hopefully it's through their collaboration, but
Yes.
do you envision one of them has the ultimate say that yep, that can go on the CIP, or does it have to be a consensus type of thing?
I think that the people who work in these buildings know what they need, and they know what their staff need. They know what works and what doesn't work. So I would imagine individual departments would still put what they need on the CIP and then coordinate that through, budgeting through the facilities manager.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? I'm sorry, I started to check you. As I'm hearing this, what I'm also kind of hearing is, again, you mentioned in your statement that there's a lot of knowledge and experience out there right now. We also are facing, and we've talked about this for the last couple of years, kind of some retirements coming up. So would you see this position kind of evolving a little bit, that as they get to know more, as there's some different staff turnover, there would still be that cooperation like Commissioner Warner was asking about, but they might have more of their arms around that in the future to kind of help articulate that and organize that CIP plan or other funding measures that we might look at in the future as we go forward and it builds out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I forgot to mention too is, of course, the county's facilities master plan, and we're going to be meeting with the county in a joint meeting in maybe 6 weeks here to talk about needs in this building, and having a central point of contact to coordinate with the county is also going to be critical in keeping those lines of communication open as the county understands their needs and makes future decisions. But we also have shared space with the county, and so we need to know how that will impact us as they make decisions for their offices.
Great. And Jackie, you had put your hand up, I believe? Go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you for the earlier explanatory information. I'm understanding that this is primarily an administrative position, not a hands-on position, but it would help me a lot to have an example. Let's say, for instance, the Bijou Theater, which is in need of a new tenant. How would the facilities manager approach that sort of a challenge?
Well, I would want them to go over there, do a site visit, try to understand how the condition of the building, the current conditions of windows and doors and internal things, the HVAC system, et cetera, and put together some sort of RFP or process for seeking out a new tenant. I would see them, working on a lot of hands-on stuff as well. It wouldn't be solely administrative. When we have turnover of tenants, we have to change locks, and we have other small maintenance things that we did write into the job description that this person could do. So they could also be the boots on the ground, visiting these sites, working with tenants. And the Bijou, I don't have a specific vision, but I know that there's real interest, and we certainly don't want a building like that has to remain vacant for very long.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions or a motion? Go ahead, Heather.
You did, in an email, say that this position was going to report to the deputy city manager, is that
assistant.
correct? Do you have a candidate already in mind?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I do not have a candidate in mind.
Go ahead, Jackie.
To follow up on that, could you describe the skill set of the sort of person that you think would be appropriate for this role?
I think that they need to have a lot of soft skills. They're going to be managing not just facilities, but the people that work in them and the tenants that we lease to. So I would imagine them having good interpersonal skills, but have a good solid knowledge of how facilities operate, such as like technical expertise as well. So I would expect this person to have a combination of both to be successful. And also maybe have a little bit of background so they can do some of the smaller work that we wouldn't necessarily have to outsource or coordinate with some of our other team that have those skills.
Thank you.
This has been my job for decades. It's good luck. To wrangle, keeping track of leases and payments on time and, extra expenses like plowing that get folded in, and then have to know how an HVAC works.
Well, with that, do we
Well,
have other
sounds like you
questions,
have
or
a
would we like to
well-qualified
make a
person.
motion?
You're going to
Go ahead,
apply?
Tim.
I'll make a motion that the city commission authorizes the creation and filling of the position of facilities manager.
Support.
Thank you.
Is that enough of a motion,
Mhm.
Mr. Clerk?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost track of that too. Okay, any other comments now on this? We appreciate Commissioner Shaw's, but we have really great people to work with, so that's all in their wheelhouse. They've got
No,
great
thank
staff to hang
you.
out with. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. So now on to old business, formerly 1, now 2, consideration of enacting an amendment for the R2 mixed density. I know that several questions have come up since this was introduced, so I don't know if people want to ask some questions now or share some of that. Oh, go ahead, Jackie.
Well, I should probably offer an explanation of this sheet of paper that everyone found at their seats, which was just some background information about the R2 density zoning proposal. And I wanted to offer a reminder that this is identical to the proposal that our predecessors on the last city commission declined to move forward roughly 19 months ago. And this sticking point then was that there were no design standards incorporated to minimize visual mass of new triplex and quadplex buildings so that they would be more coherent with existing homes. At that point, the Historic District Commission was very strongly in support of such standards, and of course, R2 zoning comprises a great deal of the Boardman and the Central neighborhoods and historic districts there. Within our recently approved master plan, there's some sensitivity to that issue. And there's a statement just in terms of duplexes, and I'm sure it applies even more so to triplexes and quadplexes, but that is that it's important to encourage the design of new duplexes such that their scale and massing are cohesive with the existing fabric of the neighborhood. I think each of us has probably the new developments we are individually familiar with and we see frequently that seem out of scale with their surroundings. And I offered you a photo just of the one on 7th Street near Munson, which kind of dwarfs the single-family home beside it. Within your packet, the planning director provided a number of line drawings that showed various configurations of how this revision in R2 zoning might appear in real life. I would remind you that those didn't show the maximum impact. They were all 2-story, and they were friendly front porch kinds of structures. So I'd just like to be sure that everyone is understanding what the maximum coverage of a quadplex or a triplex on a standard 50 by 165 city lot might be. So I've offered an illustration there. I'm sorry, it's right off of Google Images. But, and then finally, I know that we've had supporting letters from the organization Housing North, and their focus is on affordable and attainable housing. And unfortunately, we don't really have any evidence here to date that increased density has led to more affordable pricing on homes. So those were the points that I wished to make, and I thought the easiest way to do that was to give you something to hold on to.
Well, so thank you. And so at the heart of it, just to summarize for staff listening and anything else, for you, you're looking for, especially for design standards, to be brought before you would consider adopting something like this. And okay.
Yes,
Yes,
I would be more comfortable knowing that the issue of design standards, which was the barrier for the preceding city commission, was addressed in an effort to keep cohesive the appearances of our neighborhoods.
Okay, and I'm just going to make a point right now that because there were some emails and things brought up, that's why I'm kind of relaxing the rules as a whole. We usually are, and I'm purposely doing this. I'm just pointing this out to the public so they can follow us. I'm relaxing the rules a little bit. Usually at a regular meeting for something like this, we would have a motion, but there have been a lot of questions raised and points asked, so we're going to kind of be a little informal on this item. I just wanted to make that clear so people can follow along at home and in person. So, did anybody else have some questions? Mitch, I think I saw your hand go up, or?
Yes. I guess directly addressing the handout and thus Commissioner Anderson. I am curious what both design standards or issues of massing, why they would apply to a triplex or a quadplex, but not to a single-family house or duplex as is currently allowed. Where you could have a house that's a single-family house, as we see on Oak Street, that is maximizing the use on the lot. But that didn't come about from trying to build a triplex there. That was a single-family house.
I think it's a matter of scale, Commissioner.
It's the same scale if it's 1 unit or 3 units. It's the size of the box that it's in.
And a box that is 35 feet high, 35 feet wide, and 75 feet deep can accommodate 3 quite large 3-unit condos, for instance.
So 9
Um,
units?
Stacked, no, I'm saying
said
3.
three.
Hold on,
large
hold on.
three-unit
Mitch,
condos.
I appreciate where you're going, and you can ask a follow-up, but please finish,
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson.
My,
yes.
my point is that a building that contains 3 large condominiums, one unit per floor, up to the maximum height of 35 feet, and built out to the maximum setbacks and both side to side and back, could end up creating individual units that are 2,600 square feet, and that could be sold for conceivably $1 million. And that this seems counterproductive to the type of housing and the coherence with the existing appearance of the homes that are in those neighborhoods.
So would you extend the same design standards or massing to single-family houses and duplexes on these lots?
If there were a single-family dwelling that was proposed for a flat-roofed 35-foot height and built out to the max, yes, I would.
Well, we've had them built, so I'm asking, are you proposing that now?
I am proposing within the R2s that we take a look at design standards, which I don't think have been addressed by the Planning Commission, and ask those questions and be sure that we're answering them carefully and in a way that respects not only the neighborhoods, but the guidance that we've received from the Historic Districts Commission, and that we be very thoughtful in this, because I think that sticking point was not addressed and has not yet been addressed.
And I'm going to acknowledge that Commissioner Anderson is bringing forward the issue of the design standards that was brought up last time. And so I appreciate that. I'm going to open up if anybody else has any other questions or, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Warner.
Not a question, just I shared at the last meeting that this was in front of us, that I was undecided, and I have gone back and forth depending on the day of the week, the past week. And I've had the opportunity, though, to talk to people from, I think, pretty much each of the different neighborhoods that are covered by the R2, and then talk to somebody who this is part of their experience in their profession. It's not on city staff. And where I'm at with it is that they're different, and it's unfortunate, but it's what we have, that they're all zoned R2, but very different places. We don't have the opportunity to do it a la carte, at least not at this time. But that's what I struggle with, is I certainly support what's in front of us for some of these, but others not as much. But even those ones where it's not as much, and I've shared this with folks, we could approve this and folks that are in favor of it say there's nothing to be afraid of because it's unlikely much will happen, but then folks that are opposed to it say, well, why bother approving it because it's unlikely that much will happen. And to me, that holds more true where properties and existing structures are more expensive, because just the proposition of buying, say, a $750,000 home in Boardman neighborhood and tearing it down to build some condos is quite the endeavor. And I haven't heard of anybody, knocking on our door as a city wanting to do that. But, a very modest 700 square foot home behind the police station, folks that live there are actually interested in this possibility. So it's just so different. And again, to me, it's unfortunate that they are lumped together, but that's what we have. So that's what I struggle with.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Heather. Or are you just seconding that?
I'm seconding that, but I'm also.
Okay.
I also, to speak to the design and scale, I do think that design and scale should be looked at across the board, single family and up, because you can have the same problem whether you've got a single family home or a quad. I'm disappointed that the Planning Commission didn't bother to follow the recommendations in the new master plan, which actually calls for those approved plan sets. I mean, we just have this new master plan. Seems odd to me to be disregarding its recommendations right off the bat, particularly when they supposedly include the desires of residents. But my biggest problem is the one that Commissioner Werner brought up, which is that I can't find anything similar between these neighborhoods except that they're all residential. You know, maybe 50 years ago or 70 years ago, they were all lumped together and on R2 because of some reason that has gotten lost in the past, but I think they're clearly outdated. The definition that the planning director is putting forth is that the R2 district is typically located in areas that serve as a transition between more intensive corridors in downtown to less intensive R2, but you take the central neighborhood, which is a cornerstone of the largest residential block we have in Traverse City, and it is separated from the intensity of downtown but by the river. And it also has serious traffic and parking difficulties because of the school, and 7th Street is not a corridor, it's a street, and it's a mess. Slabtown neighborhood is ecologically challenged, and there are no riparian buffers there. But the one I really worry about is what Commissioner Werner was alluding to. It's the targeted portion south of 8th Street, which contains right now a great deal of affordable housing. I think that this upzone could result in gentrification. And by that I mean land values going up and the loss of starter homes. I think you could get speculation in there, particularly with the stock market as it is, and at the very least, it could have an adverse effect on the market. Instability in currently stable neighborhoods. Further down in our agenda today is the CBDG action plan for next year. And this, which was prepared by the planning department, and there are a number of very interesting points about housing in that document. One of them is, I quote, "New housing construction is market-driven and typically targets higher-income homeowners. The city of Traverse City was viewed as a lucrative market for housing of higher-income workers." I'll accept that as a fact, but I question how does that fact and this upzone making development more lucrative by going from you can build 2 homes to 4, help the city in those targeted neighborhoods. The CBDG document also says changing conditions in Michigan and the city of Traverse City in particular have the potential to reduce the safety net and increase economic challenges for highly vulnerable persons at risk of becoming homeless, already homeless, or those special needs population in need of supportive housing. Upzones favor developers. That is also a fact, especially in markets where housing demand is high and land is limited. Again, you're taking a district which is basically single family at this point, and you're allowing it to go to 4 dwellings or 4 families. This is not going to favor highly vulnerable persons. And according to the data in that CBDG document, 11.2% of our population is below the poverty level. You know, I could go on. I mean, you take it back. Own this problem. Dig into those neighborhoods. We're really small in Traverse City. Get more location-targeted recommendations. Maybe create an overlay. Maybe you'll get, if you start smaller, maybe you'll get some positive results that you can use the next time, and I'm speaking to the Planning Commission here, when you're looking at another upzone. This blanket approach in such a small city, I feel it's unnecessary, and it just creates conflict and distrust in local government. You know, you see stuff coming down from the powers that be, you have no control of it, there's no communication in the neighborhoods, people get scared, and we're in a really unstable environment right now, and I just don't think that it's necessary to make people feel more powerless and stressed. So I can't support this as it is. I do support allowing tris and quads along corridors, but this ordinance amendment is not that. I'd like it to go back and get a more focused approach and have it come back again.
We've all, I think, had a turn now, and so I'm going to chime in a little as part of this discussion because we are being informal. I agree more with where Commissioner Warner is coming from. What's the impact? Where are we going with this? I do not agree, though, with the tone, the fearful tone that I've heard of the pictures of the nice Victorian and with the forefront of a new development. I understand the fear of that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I'm hearing in this conversation, though, is let's try it in certain neighborhoods. There's a small house behind the police station, which is Traverse Heights, that wants to do this. The scale in the neighborhoods that are not the ones that have been mentioned so far, I tend to have even smaller homes that we're saying, let's make them the experiment to have a giant house put next to them. But at the end of the day, what this is where there could be a duplex built right now already, this would allow for 3 or 4. It doesn't change the footprint, it doesn't change the permeable surface, allowability, it doesn't change any of that. But I'm not saying this as in I'm gung-ho to go forward with it. I'm with Commissioner Warner of where's our benefit, where's the negative towards it. So that's why, having heard kind of variations of this, that's why I wanted to have this less formal way of having a conversation about this. I do not favor sending it back to the Planning Commission, though. The Planning Commission did what they saw as what they wanted to do and sent it to us. We are saying this is potentially something we do not want to take action on. We do not want to take action on until there's design standards. That's okay. We can do that. That means that it's been sent on by the Planning Commission. We, at some point in the future, there could be design standards planned, and Jackie could request that it's on we bring this back now, and that's something that she wants to look at. Tim might say, and I'm not assigning this to anybody. I did you, Jackie, because you said out loud. Tim, I just used you because you're a familiar voice, and always there for my whole term here. Tim might say, you know what, if I'd like to propose that we bring it back, but we're only going to do it along 8th Street and 7th Street, where those actual corridors are. That is on us at this point. The Planning Commission has done their diligence on this. They have done their work on this. That is now, this has been brought to us, and we are the final body. That's how this process works for every kind of zoning change and every kind of amendment. And so that is where I'm seeing this being left right now, is there doesn't seem to be a huge appetite to take this on right now. There's some things that we like, some of us like about it. There's some things that people don't like about it. I personally will say if somebody tries to bring it back with spot zoning like this, I will not be a favor, because I think that says let's do Oak Park and Traverse Heights and make them our guinea pigs again. That may or may not be what other people want, though, and I am one voice on this commission, but this is an open meeting, and I'm sharing that. I'm not saying that it needs to be put into Central Neighborhood or Slabtown either, though. So I think what I'm hearing, and please everybody help me direct this conversation, because that's the point of this, is there are elements of this that maybe some people kind of like, there's elements that some people don't like, and there doesn't seem to be a consensus of where we want to go on this. So right now, it sounds like this is something we just really want to set aside. It's not up to the Planning Commission to now look into a crystal ball and tweak it again. Again, that's the process. They did their part, this is our part now. And so our part can happen anytime. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there summarizing. Go ahead, Jackie.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I can also point out that, as everyone knows, we're closing in on completion of our city strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that, neighborhoods and some of those issues are an integral part of defining our future goals within the strategic plans. So just setting this aside, as you said, might allow us to be smarter in considering it in the future.
Or take a different approach, exactly. And thank you for remembering that part amongst the others. So there's a lot of factors out there that could influence how this gets brought back or what it might look like. And I say that to the public because a year from now, the strategic plan might be out, and, everybody, well, let's not say a year from now because elections happen, who knows. But 5 months from now, the strategic plan could be out, and several people here might say, you know what, actually now I want to pick this up because the strategic plan, this is actually what we want to do. I'm not saying that'll happen, but then that would just open up the conversation. We would meet again, we would have public notice. So there is still a process. This won't magically just pop up one day for a vote and everybody's going to be surprised either. It will take some kind of consideration from this commission to make us want to pick it up again, and that will be clearly expressed and shared and moved through the process as well. So, did anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Mitch.
Well, just procedurally, since it sounds like we're not having a motion, are we going to have public comment?
I was going to allow it,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you. Yep. Anything else from anybody right now? So to make it clear to the public, because we did do this a little off script from how we normally do, this was basically a conversation. There is no motion tonight to take action on this. The desire of the commission as summarized here tonight is there's some pieces we like about this. There's some pieces that some people don't. There's not a consensus. This is not going to show up again in a week or two because we're not making that motion to move it forward. But we will allow right now public comment for anybody who wants to weigh in if you would like to. So if anyone would like to make public comment, please feel free to approach the podium.
And I'll state the rules for public comment for this evening. When you get to the podium, please state your name and address, indicate if you're a city resident, non-city resident, or a city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And we ask that all language be respectful to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. My name is Connor Miller. I'm a resident at 890 Boone Street, Traverse City. I am a Garfield Township resident, but I am also employed at Aspire North Realtors, which is located at 852 South Garfield Avenue in the city of Traverse City. So I would just like to take the time to thank the Traverse City Planning Commission for recommending this amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would allow up to 4 dwelling units per lot in the R2 mixed density residential district. I'd also like to thank the Traverse City Commission for their consideration of this amendment tonight. I, as well as Alan Jeffries, the CEO of Aspire North Realtors, support this amendment as you have before you. On a personal note, it was thanks to a long-term rental with 4 units in the city of Traverse City residential district that I was actually able to stay in this community back in 2011. This housing supported 3 young, early in their career professionals with limited funds to call Traverse City home, a college student at NMC, and 2 AmeriCorps Vista members. AmeriCorps Vista members make a stipend that is just above the poverty line. All 3 of these renters, including myself, are now homeowners in the area. One is a nurse at Munson Medical Center. One is a remote employee who could work anywhere. However, they chose to reside in the city of Traverse City and is a prominent member of the Old Town Playhouse Orchestra, playing in the majority of their shows each year. The third is myself, someone who volunteers for various Traverse City community events each year, a Traverse City Rotarian for more than a decade, and an election inspector in Traverse City elections since 2019. This rental also benefited the owner, providing added revenue that allowed them as a single individual, an employee of NMC, to hold on to their property in the city of Traverse City. The amendment you consider tonight and will continue to consider supports homeowners' ability to choose, if they wish, to provide more of these housing options for people in our community, while still fitting within the standards and the character of Traverse City's neighborhoods. I hope that you will, in the future, consider support of this amendment so that even more people have the opportunity to live in this wonderful community, fall in love with this community, and contribute to this community now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Laird, and I live at 423 West 7th Street. And I also lived in an upper flat 40 years ago when I moved to Traverse City. I was a teacher. It was the cheapest place that you could stay if you could find a house that was a duplex or a triplex or that sort of thing. Nowadays, I'm a retired teacher, and my daughter's a teacher, and she just graduated just a little bit ago. And the beginning teacher in Traverse City makes $45,000 a year after taxes, and you're not supposed to pay more than 30% of your wages in income. A teacher in Traverse City, beginning teacher, shouldn't be paying more than $1,000 for an apartment. The idea that the density is going to increase in Traverse City, and these apartments are going to be affordable to people. I just find that really hard to believe, that the places that are going to be turned into duplexes and triplexes are going to be $1,000 a month that a nurse or a teacher could afford. And my daughter's moving to Grand Rapids. She's not going to be living in Traverse City because she can't afford an apartment as a beginning teacher. So that's my worry, is that. And again, you know, Traverse City, they're saying it's going to be the Aspen of the North, and, you know, all that sort of thing. And just the gentrification and so on, it's a big concern for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And if a few people are waiting, you can also start queuing too. I don't want to make everybody think they have to wait till somebody's done to get up. Sorry.
In fact, we
continue.
encourage it if you're willing.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was my nice way of encouraging it. Go ahead, sorry.
Good evening, Paul Wilkins. I'm at 610 North Madison Street. I commend the City Commission for putting this on ice and waiting. Thank you for your wisdom on that issue. I would encourage you to come up with the design standards for height and mass, not only for duplexes, quadplexes, but I think single-family houses as well. I think that's a needed addition, and as it's been pointed out, part of the master plan. So I don't know how this goes. City Manager Vogel or Mayor Shamro, do you push that issue to get it developed, support it, whatever it takes? Secondly, I support and I see the need for density here in Traverse City for affordable housing. I'm concerned about two small houses being purchased and torn down, and those two 50-foot lots being combined and putting one large single-family home in its place. And what we've done, we've lost two small individual housing units that may have been more affordable than this one huge house in one lot. Again, two small 50-foot lots combined. I would encourage you to support that activity through the Planning Commission, and maybe that's Director Winter would take that one on, to come up with a recommendation that would then hold steady our small lots and our small houses for affordability and higher density as neighborhoods exist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for considering the proposed ordinance change. Susan Lighthouser Yee, 930 Barlow, and I'm here representing Housing North. We did write a letter in support encouraging acceptance of the ordinance, but I understand the position that you'd like to see it refined. I would just like to emphasize the cost efficiency of developing additional dwelling units on infill parcels, which is an extension of a number of other things that have already been approved. Well, I think Director Winter did a great job of putting a lot of detail into the agenda packet. I understand that R2 is only 2.3% of the city's own, or of city land, but I do think that this ordinance represents some low-hanging fruit to add additional dwelling units and is consistent with the city's other efforts to enable infill home development. Just noting the property characteristics that help to make development on or increasing density on parcels that already have a dwelling on them, whether duplex or other. Traverse City's unique resources include privately owned R2 parcels, which are served by municipal water and sewer, gas, and electric utilities, and have egress from either two streets, like in the case of Union and Locust, or, and I'm sorry, that may not be R2, or have the alley infrastructure, where you have egress from more than one side of the lot. That's very unusual in Grand Traverse County. Traverse City really is the only place that has that, and that's one of the reasons we support this extension of the ability for private parties to increase the number of dwelling units in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Stimson with Homestretch Nonprofit. I'm disappointed that you won't be making a decision tonight. I can tell you why in a minute, but I have an example. Mayor, if I can approach with some brochures.
You can hand it to Benjamin, he can pass it down to
Okay.
us. Please go back to the
Okay.
podium for the public comment.
So what you have before you in a minute there is going to be a infill project that Homestretch has been working on for about 4 years. We have a duplex that's designed to be built on a narrow lot within the Traverse Heights neighborhood. It's actually funded right now with funds through MISTA. They have given us a $200,000 grant to build a duplex. That duplex can be duplicated, and on that site plan, you'll see there's, in the back part of the lot, an exact duplicate of what we're going to build on the front. It just so happens that that is the scale, the size, all the requirements, I think, that you had been talking about as far as massing, design criteria. Maybe you don't like it. I think it's pretty cool. It's going to be affordable. They're going to sell for approximately $275,000 each. So that brings it within range to, you know, the, not working class, but up to 100% AMI. Our target is probably closer to 80% AMI. It makes it affordable in that if you can put more density on a lot, the lot cost us $100,000 instead of selling one home with a lot cost of $100,000 plus $300 for the home, that's $400,000. We can take that $100,000 and carve it into 4. So each individual owner pays $25,000. That's just economy of scale. I don't see any design criteria that would inhibit somebody from building. It's all subjective. If you're going for character in a Victorian themed community, maybe that would come into play. But I digress. That's really your purview, and I respect that. But I think our plan is architecturally appealing. It's professionally drawn. And I have no beef with you putting in some standards. We'll meet those criteria no matter what you come up with. For this particular case, though, I'm disappointed because I'd love a decision tonight. Right now, MISTA is willing to double that $200,000 grant to $400,000 if this R2 were approved to R4 or higher density. So we'll go on, we'll do our work. We're going to build a fine duplex there. If after the point that you do go to
Excuse me,
R4,
thank you for your comments.
I'll let you
we'll
finish
build
your
4
sentence
units.
since you did pass out.
Yeah, and it just is disappointing, but I respect you all, and I look forward to coming back with hopefully another duplex in the back of this lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on this?
Steve Nance, 609 Webster. I really appreciate, Jackie, Heather, the comments and the commission kind of taking a breather on this. I lived on Washington Street, Wayne Street, Peninsula Drive, now on Webster. Where else have I lived? Since the 70s, I've seen quite a bit of changes in Traverse City. I think that the concern, chatting with some of the neighbors, especially in the R2 areas, we're not against density, and it's important. Affordable housing is important, but could we be opening up this change in our neighborhoods for developers and development? And I think that's what I'm hearing. And there's also a bit of a concern with increased taxes. So that might be something that, for the conversation going forward. Thanks for taking a moment to kind of tee this up, but put it on idle for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Which isn't really an item, so thank you. I just wanted to bring it back. I am going to, something that was said during public comment keyed something for me. 15 years ago, I was working 2 jobs at an office and retail downtown Traverse City, living in a duplex in Slabtown. and barely able to make my rent then. And it would, if people knew how much I was paying in rent back then, they'd laugh at me to be worried about it then. But it's what the pay is and where we are. I do want to remind people, and this is in general conversation, this is not about bringing this back any sooner, as we're having discussions and as our planning commission is trying to work on solutions, that we keep talking about affordable, and affordable is some of the reasoning behind some of the things we do, but the studies we have show that we have 0.5 vacancy in this area for everybody, whether that's upper class, upper echelon, to affordable workers. And that is a major problem. And I will say this because at that time that I was renting in Slabtown, I remember the very popular conversation was, well, we don't need any more condos. We don't need any more condos. We don't want condos. They're ruining our town. So what happened in the last 15 years is as people have moved here, as things have changed, our family housing in our neighborhoods, how many families are moving in? It's not that none are. I'm not trying to say that we're in an extreme. But a lot of our family homes are now occupied by people who probably would be buying condos or other things. I'm saying this as we have to keep a very open perspective as we look at what's being developed. And yes, developers are going to develop. We don't build our own homes. We don't build our own apartments. We don't improve. I mean, maybe not a developer, but builders come in and are even doing our ADUs, right? And so there's going to always be professionals that are involved. I'm not saying that any of this is good, bad, or otherwise. I'm just saying as things come to us, I think we tend to get a little on a groove, like a record, of we're looking for affordable and we're looking for affordable only. There's also new tools coming out that allow us to do it on smaller scales of tax breaks. So somebody renting out 3 units or 2 units somewhere, there are now tax tools that are going to be available for that. So all of this is stuff that's working that we can all talk about in the future, as some of this may come back, as other things might come up from the Planning Commission. But I want us to all have that perspective that I think affordable housing, we've always talked about, doesn't get used properly sometimes because there is an actual legal definition that MSHDA looks at. But also, I think sometimes we can use that as it's that way or no way, and then we lose a lot of that middle. And it's not just on the city of Traverse City. That's going to be developed all around this county. But as we're having these larger conversations, as we're having our conversations with our neighbors in the townships in the county, I think we really have to remember that this area has nowhere to move. And as we're trying to find housing for people experiencing homelessness, which is some later on our agenda here, the next item, and beyond, and as we're talking about the people who are attracted here, some of you have moved here in the last 20 years, some of you have moved here in the last 5 years, some of you have lived here your whole life. And it has changed, but we also have people who are coming here and we can't stop that. So how do we work on big solutions all together that might not always have the most magic phrase or number beside them? And so I just ask everybody as we continue these conversations, especially looking at our agenda tonight, to kind of keep that in mind, that we're always striving to do the best we can for affordable, especially. I think we would all agree that that is the number one priority here, that all of the movement we can see in housing is going to be impactful on every income level, including affordable, as housing moves around. So that is my not item that I'm going to just bring up because it made me think of my own experiences here as a lifelong resident and when I was starting out professionally. So with that, we're going to move on to our next item, which was 2, is now 3, which is our SLUP for Safe Harbor. And I will let you start that off, please, City Manager Vogel.
Thank you very much. Before you is a recommendation for a new SLUP, special land use permit for Safe Harbor. The motion that was approved by the Planning Commission is in your packet, that that the motion of findings in the staff report for special land use permit application 25 SLUP SLUP 01 be adopted, and that the special land use permit application submitted by Safe Harbor of Grand Traverse, Inc. allow for year-round emergency shelter at 517 Wellington Street. The location of the existing SLUP-approved seasonal emergency shelter be recommended to the City Commission for approval with the following conditions. 1, a pedestrian connection be constructed between the east parking lot and building at a location approved by the planning director. 2, operation between May 15 and October 15 may commence upon approval by the City Commission, with all site improvements completed by November 15, 2025. And 3, all applicable standards and requirements be met, permits secured prior to commencing approved site improvements. And so the requested action this evening is that the City Commission move to schedule the required public hearing with proper notice.
And I think that's just an important thing to look at, that this is the public hearing motion So this is the next step in the process. That's what the motion will read. This is not a final approval of anything. We will still have conversations here about it, though, but I just wanted to clarify because that's a nuance of our system that sometimes gets lost. So with that, commissioners, I open up. Does anybody have any questions? Does somebody want to make a motion? Go ahead, Heather.
So the MOU with Community Cares Coalition comes at the public hearing, or when are we going to hear about that?
That is between the two parties themselves that they have already signed. We are not purview to that because that is between the two parties and not us. But we do know, and has been confirmed by all, that the Community Cares Coalition and Safe Harbor have signed a memorandum of understanding that it was satisfactory to both of them because they both signed on it.
But they haven't shared it.
They don't have to. They don't have to share it. Do you have any other to add to that, Lauren? I mean, we kind of talked about that in prep for this, but am I missing a nuance there?
No.
Okay.
In the MOU, whatever's between those two parties is not a condition of the special land use permit.
Okay. But it does exist. Do we have other questions, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that the request from Safe Harbor of Grand Traverse, Inc. for a special land use permit 25-01 for a year-round emergency shelter at 517 Wellington Street as described in the March 19, 2025 memo from the Planning Director, as recommended by the Planning Commission, be scheduled for a public hearing on May 5th, 2025.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Warner. Okay, now general discussion or questions. Go ahead, Jackie.
I appreciate that we're not privy to the agreement between the Community Cares Coalition and Safe Harbor at the moment, but I'd like to echo some of the community concerns that were shared with me, just to say now that public funds are being channeled to this effort, which I absolutely believe is the right thing to do, that I would like to use whatever influence we have to try to dial up the transparency and visibility to the public of their decision-making, their operations, anything that they can share with the public and with the city as a public donor, in essence. I'd like to encourage them to.
Thank you.
Support that.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and along those lines, personal curiosity, and I think part of the public's curious as well. I don't have the parcel numbers in front of me, but the parcel to the east, which is owned by Safe Harbor from the city originally, that was long discussed as some sort of interim housing potential, and I know there's certainly very large challenges with it, and that's part of why it still remains empty, but any sort of update on possible futures for that would be appreciated.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Any other questions or concerns right now? Sorry, and I'm going to ask this, and it all is a blur to me right now. Does this, I know in the previous SLUP, we had kind of a community stakeholder kind of meetings that were set up. Is that in this, or is that not in this version of it? Sorry, I'm forgetting. Anybody who wants to speak to it.
Sean Winter, City Planning Director. This question did come up at the Planning Commission level, and the representative from Safe Harbor mentioned that it is in the management plan that those outreach meetings are continuing and will continue.
Great, that's fantastic. So that, for those who weren't part of it originally, that it was usually stakeholders from Boardman neighborhood, commission representation, sometimes when they could, police were always there. So a lot of the stakeholders that we're kind of talking about wanting feedback and wanting more of that openness are invited to the table for those. I was on it for, I think, 2 years, 3 years, and they were quarterly meetings. So, and usually quarterly, but timed so that they were meeting just before Safe Harbor would open for the season, during the season, as it was closing for the season, which if this goes through would not be the case, but I think it would be very likely to look at like fall, summer's check-ins and see how things are going. So it was not just okay, we're picking this third Thursday of this quarter. It was based around getting the best feedback for how the process of the progress of the operations were going. And I have faith in the team that was planning that then and now that to continue that conversation. So, did we have other questions, concerns? Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing to emphasize what Commissioner Anderson said, that I'd really like some more transparency in what's going on with the MOU, what's the timeline, an overnight only emergency shelter is just a Band-Aid, and it's not a very good Band-Aid. And it's no wonder that people don't want to leave the Pines if they also have to leave behind their dog, and they have to leave behind their community, and they have to leave behind all their stuff to go out and wander the streets during the day to a bunch of unfriendly faces. Safe Harbor has been wonderful, and I commend the heroic work that they put into it, and certainly an inspired stopgap measure, but it is not, we need housing to end homelessness.
I agree, Commissioner Shaw, and I would also second your statement that this is the Band-Aid, and we know from our partners, who we'll hear from later, and others involved, that this is part of a coalition group and bigger pictures and more pieces, finding housing, finding supportive housing, finding temporary housing, things like that, that are, I think, at least I'll just editorialize and say this, in the 10 years that I've been elected, the conversations and the communication that are happening now are better than I've ever seen. And that gives me a lot of hope for where we're going. I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of really great knowledge that have existed here and been brought in, and we are definitely moving in the right direction. But this is the Band-Aid we have right now, and will it be forever? Probably not. And so this is where we are right now, though, to help with some of those issues and see where we can tweak and refine as we go forward as well. Any other? Seeing none, I will open up public comment on this item, please. And this is scheduling of the hearing, just so everybody's clear.
Stephen Nance, 609 Webster. And I appreciate that the next step is public hearing. I do have to express concerns. I'm a neighborhood resident and also affiliated with the North Boardman Lake District. We have not had great communication about the meetings, in fact, they didn't hold some quarterly meetings for a while, Safe Harbor. So I would ask that we please make sure that those communications and that we get a little better about how that communication, how those meetings are communicated for neighbors, for the business and property owners on the 8th Street corridor, because they have an involvement here too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Darcy Pickren, Traverse City. I'm with Keys to Freedom Ministries. We have a couple of recovery homes. I work in the jail doing classes. I'm also on the Community Corrections Board. And I just want to say, first of all, I appreciate the Planning Commission scheduling a public hearing on May 5th, and I hope that many will attend and voice their concerns. I'm not in favor of a 24/7 year-round shelter in Boardman neighborhood where children and families reside. I've been here a long time, 50 years, and I've worked with the homeless, all the agencies, Women's Resource Center, Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency, and on. With $1.1 million to run Safe Harbor for the year for 65 or 70 people, we could put them in housing, about $1,300 a month, put that toward rent. And what's great is we have the recently formed Traverse City Police Department Quick Response Team, QRT, which has garnered 12 primary stakeholders and 45 to 50 secondary stakeholders. And I commend them for bringing so many people together to help solve the overdose crisis. But there's no shortage of the agencies who would and can provide supportive services to these individuals. Safe Harbor, the Pines, Community Cares Coalition, et cetera. You build it, they come. Is the city able to sustain this madness? Is the city ready for expansion of Safe Harbor to perpetuate permanent placement of the homeless in our region for years to come? Will the city county build more emergency shelters? Will they allow more tents to appear in other city parks? Who has thought about the bigger picture? Who is going to decide on priorities? What is most effective? Where is this going? What is required of those seeking services? Where is individual personal responsibility and personal accountability? Is there any at Safe Harbor? Are they required to take a PBT or clean up their space, help with meals, wash dishes? Successful programs require something of the individuals they serve. That's what we do at Keys to Freedom Ministries. We have recovery homes. At Community Corrections, we have a 76% success rate because we require personal responsibility and accountability of the people that are part of our programs. And I would just ask to find out. You can go to Central United Methodist Church and Jubilee House and do nothing. They're served as guests, and they should be helping. They should be doing something. I think what we need to do is stop the enabling, and we need to have some kind of deliverance of them for doing something. They're doing nothing, and we need to require something from them. And I think that they would serve us well if we did that. So let's please look at the big picture and vision for a safe, permanent solution to homelessness and also incarceration. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing and thinking this through. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Callie Bullock, 229 Wellington Street. I just wanted to echo Steve Nance, our neighbor here, and with, I really don't feel like you are engaging the neighbors or the stakeholders or listening to them, and if you are trying to engage stakeholders, you're not doing the best job. As I feel like in the neighborhood right around Safe Harbor, I'm not being engaged, and we have issues on a daily basis, and I'd really like to be engaged and take part in these conversations, and I think a public hearing is great. I think that's a good step, but also, like Steve said, we're not being listened to or taken seriously. And the Band-Aid solution is just not working, and saying it's a Band-Aid when it's 10 years later, that's not a good answer. That's not a good response to people who live in the neighborhood. Because you're going to put another Band-Aid on there, and it's going to go another 10 years, and it's not working. And I just would like you to look at other solutions, like not anti-homeless shelter by any means. We need to take care of the people who are here, are homeless here, who need care, but maybe not the neighborhood, and maybe a more compassionate approach to it, where it's not a Band-Aid. It's not a place to sleep for the night. We are working towards an actual solution to getting people back up on their feet and towards permanent housing. So I just wanted to say, take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Paul Deo, 13th Street. I first learned about the problems with homelessness when I became a trustee on the Traverse Area District Library. And we had problems with people at the library, homeless people. It's cost us money, about $72,000 a year, in order to have private security. However, the more I looked into it, I started to understand that these people weren't going to go away. And so I started working at Central United Methodist and at Safe Harbor, and see that it is a community that, I think you're right, needs help. And I'm sure that Safe Harbor would be interested in your input. But this Band-Aid needs to stay in place, because we can't have the conditions that we have at the Pines. I've cleaned out the Pines. That's not a place that we want to send the police force or the medical people who go in there. We need to get better, but we need to start from someplace, and this is a place we can start from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Merrick Rowan, 517 3rd Street. I just want to echo what the person before me just said. I've challenged myself to learn more about the unhoused population, volunteering at Safe Harbor. And I know that being the vice president of my Slabtown Neighborhood Association, we have 2 wonderful parks, and what could happen if that problem did spread to other places. I think it's great I would like to know more and how to be able to spread the word on what's going on and what solutions are being taken care of at these quarterly meetings. Please would look forward to spreading the word and trying to get information out, because I think that's the most powerful thing we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. I did just want to point out that the SLUP meetings, the ones that didn't meet for a while, the old SLUP, I think, only required it for 5 years or so, and then there was kind of there was a time period on it, and there was kind of a hiccup of, well, are we continuing this or not? And then I believe it was brought back. So I think that is something that we can talk about through this is, I don't think there has to be an expiration date on it. And so I just wanted to clarify that point, that we do want to do better and have those conversations continue throughout this whole process and beyond anything that we're doing in the next month to 2 months. So, any other comments from Commissioners?
I just wanted to say, and maybe I can reach out to Safe Harbor, but they had their last quarterly meeting on March 25th, and I heard that it was well attended. So if there's any way that maybe the city staff can help them get that outreach to the neighborhoods as well, I don't know how they're posting those meetings, so I can certainly look into that to make sure that when they host those quarterly meetings, the neighbors know.
Well, I think part of this, I will say, is the stakeholder meetings that were required had representation. So it was not meant to be in, the training room. It was neighborhood association presidents and or their representative, police staff, whether it was chief at the time or others. So it was not meant to be a regular meeting with, it was meant to be an informational and sharing concerns, but through representatives. Whether that's something we hear from Safe Harbor later, that they want to do more as part of this hearing and everything, that they want to do more outreach annually, biannually, or something like that. That's certainly something we could hear an update on. But I just wanted to clarify that it was not a city commission per se, or a meeting like this. It was representation and representatives sharing concerns, getting feedback, and then ostensibly taking it to their neighborhood association to share that with them, which was the process that was happening at the time. So. Mitch, go ahead.
Yes, I can say that I attended that March 25th meeting, and it was insightful as far as what the progress they've made over the past year is, where they stand, both financially, staffing, and capacity in the potential transition to year-round operations, and how their timelines are looking.
Great, thank you for sharing that update. So, and as we're doing more of our updates, our representation on boards like that can also share those beyond just our Light and Power, Planning Commission, et cetera, share outs as well. So, okay, with that, then I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So that public hearing will be scheduled for, what was it, May 5th?
May 5th.
Thank you. Sorry. So, thank you all for the input on that one. Now we'll move to City Manager Vogel to give us an update on the unhoused residents of Traverse City.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Shamro. I did want to provide an update on the Pines and where all of our collective work has gotten to us at this point. There are approximately 10 camps currently set up within the Pines, consisting of less than 20 individuals and no children. Every number is a snapshot in time, which means the number is constantly changing, so I can't sit here and say there's the precise number of folks. Last winter, we saw numbers in the 30 to 40 range, so this is considerably less than last year. All of these individuals are connected with the homelessness response system. Specifics on housing plans can be answered best by the Coalition to End Homelessness, and I do see Ashley Halliday-Schmand from the Coalition here to answer questions. Safe Harbor reports averaging 65 individuals in their shelter this season. Between Safe Harbor and other housing solutions, there are enough options for shelter to accommodate those who are still at the Pines. In anticipation of the new SLUP being approved on May 5th, Safe Harbor is staying open until May 15, which the current SLUP allows, although in previous seasons they have traditionally closed on April 30th. If the new SLUP is not approved, operations would continue under the existing SLUP, which means Safe Harbor will close on May 15 at the latest. We need to be realistic that the Pines will continue to exist in the summer of 2025 and beyond if the special land use permit is not approved. In anticipation of this special land use permit being approved on May 5th, city staff and providers are coordinating on an enforcement date for no camping in the Pines, which we hope to announce next week. Questions have been asked about how those experiencing homelessness who have mobility or medical issues, how those would be issued. Local shelters, including Safe Harbor and the Goodwill Inn, along with housing complexes, all have ADA compliant options. Providers are prepared to assist with those who have mobility or medical issues. And I really want to emphasize that providers are making every effort to ensure there is shelter for everyone who is living in the Pines. They have been in contact with those in the Pines, and they know who they are. These outreach and engagement efforts have been ongoing and almost daily since last fall to give individuals options, which will continue up to and beyond the day of enforcement. We also want to recognize, and I believe that Commissioner Shaw touched on this, that this is difficult, and there are people who have built a community who are living there and may not want to leave. And it will be a challenging transition, so we want to recognize this. But we also need to balance empathy and the health, safety, and welfare needs of this entire community, including those living in the Pines. Without proper sanitation, healthcare access, and security, encampments put individuals at risk and create significant public health and safety challenges. This is just not an appropriate place for humans to live. Since last fall, they have been given multiple prior notices verbally that a date of enforcement is coming, and they will have the opportunity to leave up to and on the day of enforcement. As soon as the date is announced, there will be continued verbal and written notices provided, as well as ongoing support to transition out of the Pines. After making every effort to support transition to shelter or housing, if someone refuses to leave, they will be cited and could be arrested. I also want to emphasize that law enforcement is working alongside service providers to approach this in a way that prioritizes engagement, not citations. The Quick Response Team is a critical component of this transition plan and is committed to ensuring the engagement through community policing. Our outreach teams are working actively with individuals to provide shelter options, case management, and pathways to permanent housing. And I'd also like to circle back on the housing-focused approach. We know that the priority is always to ensure that people experiencing homelessness have access to safe, stable housing, not just temporary solutions. The ultimate goal is to connect individuals with housing and supportive services that can help them regain stability, not just move them from one outdoor location to another. Our community has stepped up to the increased shelter capacity, and Safe Harbor moving to year-round will provide those additional beds. Expanding shelter options ensures that people aren't left without alternatives when the encampment closes. And that is my update. I am sure there will be questions. And again, we have Chief Matt Richmond here, and we have the director of the coalition here as well to answer questions.
Do we have questions? Go ahead, Tim.
So at some point between now and the evictions, will you be looking for any direction or guidance from this body?
We have been working really closely, and I guess that would be a question for Chief Richmond, but our law enforcement have been working extremely close with the Quick Response Team and those providers to make sure that everyone who's in the Pines right now, we know who they are, and they're all working on a plan for those individuals. So if this body wants to offer some support or advice in that respect, but these providers are out there. They know these individuals. They know what their needs are. They know where they stand, whether they're in line for permanent supportive housing or whether they would go to the Safe Harbor shelter.
So I guess before that date, I'd need to know, say it's 20 individuals, where those 20 individuals are going, because we, as a community, there are relationships with them, so I would expect that you know for each of those 20 individuals where they're going to go when evicted. And if we have to be in closed session to be able to discuss that, but I can't support it if we don't know where those 20 individuals are being forced to go.
Does Ashley and or Chief want to come up and talk to kind of the process at least? I would not support even in closed session for us to be sharing that information because that is not in our purview for their contracts with any of the QRT outreach.
Matt Richmond, Chief of Police. To answer your question, again, I'm going to echo what City Manager said. We are working daily to identify those individuals that are in the Pines and come up with a solution and a place for them to go when that date is announced. And we are continue to work for long-term solutions for them. But at this point, the Pines is not sustainable. It's unsafe. There's physical and environmental conditions that are deteriorating. It's not sustainable for long-term. Safe Harbor going year-round is a better place for them to be. And again, we will continue to work with Safe Harbor, the neighborhoods, for a safety plan to ensure that we are providing the best for their neighborhoods, just like we are in the Pines and Central Neighborhood and those things. Can I say right now that everybody has a plan? Not everybody has a plan as of right now. But we have been told in the past that there are many that are waiting for a date, and that they will come up with their plan or, activate the plan that they have, and they will leave. So, again, we are working with our 60 partners within the QRT. We, in March, dedicated a portion of that QRT meeting to just those individuals that we've identified in the Pines. We continue to work with the Goodwill in outreach and our social workers, our community police officer that is out there daily interacting with those individuals. We know who they are. We know that some of them have plans. They know that a date is coming. They just don't know the exact date. And I think that'll give them some guidance, and I think more plans will fall into place at that time. There are people just staying there because they can, and there's not a date.
Thank you. And just to clarify, and I think it was gone over a little bit, but I think sometimes when this conversation comes up, people picture it as, police cars rolling up or ambulances and dragging people out. Can you describe a little bit more what this is actually going to look like from your side as enforcement and working on with the QRT and these other groups that are engaged?
I mean, as far as operational, I'm not going to get into operational plans of what we're doing. That's for the safety of our officers. That's
Okay.
for the safety of the individuals within the Pine and the community members. We do have a plan, and any time in this profession, unfortunately, we have to plan for the worst. We have to plan for every contingency there is out there. And we hope that it works out for the best. That's what we go into in every large-scale event or anything that happens within this community. Because if we don't and something happens during that time, then we're ill-prepared, and that's no good for anyone. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of our operations, but I can tell you we are working on a daily basis with our service providers, QRT, to get the best solution for them when this enforcement date comes.
And that's, sorry, and I appreciate your answer. That was really just what I was looking for, that double underline of this isn't we're going to announce a date and last minute it's going to be enforced. There's going to be a lot of that effort put in leading up to it to ensure people are safe and healthy.
And that is correct. And I've said that from day one, and I will stick by that. It's not going to be tomorrow, and they have to be out. And we will go in and we will notify them of the date. We will provide it verbally. We will provide it in writing. We've done that to this point when we're in there enforcing other ordinances. Our main goal, and I stressed this in a memo in 2023, our first steps are to allow them to correct the issues themselves without any kind of enforcement, without any involvement of ourselves. If they need places, they need resources, we provide them to the QRT and let them do their jobs as far as facilitating to the individual that can best suit their needs. And then if enforcement is needed, we've given them the opportunity to correct those solutions just like anybody else in this community. Our number one focus is not just to go out and write a ticket or make an arrest. Our focus is to help people and make this society, make our community a safe place. The Pines right now, there are people that, because we allow them, we tell them, if you want to camp, you need to go to the Pines. I don't want to go to the Pines because I don't feel safe. There's community members that don't feel safe. The safety of our officers going into the Pines, the safety of our parks, our fire department going into the Pines, that's the number one spot that we respond to. A lot of it is self-initiated, and that's because we're trying to be back there establishing rapport, establishing trust, so that we can help facilitate the best for those individuals. But right now, since 21, the calls for service, the number of times that we're back there is just increasing year after year.
Thank you. Other questions? Go ahead, Heather.
Is it possible that we could be notified when this is going to happen, not like 10 hours later or the next day, so that we have some heads up, and so when the emails start flying in, we know what we're talking about? It doesn't have to be the day before, it could be the same day, but is it
Yeah, I mean,
possible that?
at this point, you know, I think it's going to be a group effort between the city manager and myself. Safe Harbor wanted to be there as well as far as setting that date. And if we hold a press conference, you'll know when that press conference is, so that we can, you know.
The press conference ahead of the actual, or
Oh.
to
Correct.
announce the date? Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, we can do that.
I have another question, and maybe it's for both you and city manager. We saw some ordinances come through, like how to enforce, you know, public urination and public drinking. Do you expect those to come back to us before this date comes up?
That's the goal.
Okay.
We did have a productive meeting with folks from the ACLU, and we asked them for some feedback, and we got some just last week, so we're going to keep working through those, and we're hoping to bring those back to you in this month. Yeah.
Great.
Again, that shows our dedication. We took your feedback. We took the feedback that we got here in those commission meetings. We went to the ACLU. We took their feedback. They wrote us a letter. We're trying to get everybody involved in this so that we make it the best for everybody.
Thank you. Mitch, you had your hand up?
Yes, I don't know if this is more a question for Chief or for Ashley or for another person that's here, but to what extent I understand there's a lot of partners and there's a lot of points of contact with each person, but to what extent is there an effort made to find the best solution and develop a plan for each person? I've looking back at myself and my own experiences as somebody that was homeless, and for working with multiple people in the community, I can think of a particular case of an elderly woman who had been homeless and was able to get into housing, but the housing that she got, and yes, she can afford it, and she thinks her apartment is very nice, is out by West Senior High, and at that location, she cannot walk to a grocery store. She cannot walk to other businesses and shops or restaurants that she might like to visit. She is far from the community that she had developed, both in the Pines and in Traverse City. And because of that physical distance, even though it may only be 3 miles, that is a significant distance for a person that's elderly to walk. And her emotional distress about that has caused her to be kicked out of the bus station on a couple days now, which again makes it more difficult for a person to get around.
I can tell you within the city, if they are a member of the QRT, you know, that's exactly what we're looking to do, is help fill those gaps, help solve the issues that they are rising until they get those needs met, regardless of its substance use disorder, mental health, or homelessness. They're part of the QRT, and we work to meet their needs. And if, you know, they still are qualifying for the QRT and they have an issue with transportation, then we look for those community partners to step up. We put them in touch with them and see what we can do to fill that gap.
I can shed a little bit more light too. Ashley, I'm the director of the Coalition to End Homelessness. And what we've been doing with Chief's support is actually our outreach team is meeting weekly with the police social workers and the community police officer. So we meet with them weekly and we go over the list of names of every single person in the Pines and work with the service providers to develop a person-centered plan for each person. Now that doesn't mean that people don't have free will and that we can offer what we can offer, and people still can choose to live where they want, do what they want. And I think that kind of speaks to your example, Commissioner Treadwell. The other thing I want to bring up is we need more housing stock. If people want choice in this community that they should all have, and especially our most vulnerable people, we need more housing stock. People are living in the outskirts far away from resources that they need in their community that they're used to because we don't have enough housing stock in the city, or in the county for that matter. But I think, so that kind of speak to some other things that we've talked about here tonight related to density and zoning, so.
Yes. Any other questions right now from the commission? I want to thank Ashley for bringing up that point at the end there that I think gets into some of the other topics we've talked about tonight and will continue to talk about tonight, literally, is at the end of the day, I think I really want to point this out because I think it gets taken for granted. Our QRT, which is centered around the TCPD, and maybe we'll have some more cooperation from our county partners. I know there's a lot of conversations going. Our county commission is starting to engage a little bit more on this topic, is the city of Traverse City. Munson Hospital is city of Traverse City. Jubilee House is in the city of Traverse City. Central United Methodist Church is in the city of Traverse City. Some of that is by definition because of where the issues are and where this support is needed. No one here, I think, up on this dais is going to say no if East Bay wants to build an affordable housing project and work with Beta to have a stop there. No one here is going to stop if, you know, someone in Blair Township wants to open a facility that is going to offer transportation and assistance to people who are experiencing homelessness or have other issues. We only make the decisions for 8.6 miles of this county and about 16,000 people. We're trying our best here. Our partners are doing an amazing job. Our partners have further reach, and that's why we look to them, and that's why we work with them. We welcome partners from around this community everywhere to join us, support our partners that we're supporting, doing QRT, doing other things that can help us. When people are talking about the Band-Aid and what else we can do and, you know, where else can they find an apartment, or that is what we're talking about, right? This is that 0.5% of all levels of housing. We don't have a lot of movement for people, period. And we only can support legally funding. The city of Traverse City can only support funding within the city of Traverse City. And so this is where I'm just going to say thank you to our teams, because through this coordination of our police department, we are able to work with organizations that have a larger reach. We as a body have a very limited reach. And I need to make that clear to people, because sometimes we'll say, well, what about this thing over here? And it's not in the city. That's not where we can spend money. That's not how we can direct these things. And so I just wanted to really underscore the brilliant, honestly, solution that has come out of these conversations of the last couple of years that has gotten us a wider reach, but allowed us to operate within the city. And we welcome and hope to see more of our partners to join us in this conversation, more of our neighbors joining us in this conversation and supporting our partners who are doing amazing work. And so I just really wanted to underline that, because I think a lot of times people think, and especially because of the addresses in this community, I've lived here my whole life, and everybody I know pretty much has a Traverse City address, but they don't live in the city of Traverse City. And I think that's something very important for us to remind people that we're doing, our teams are doing a lot of work here in 8.6 miles that helps the entire community, and we'd love some of the support with that. So with that, as we've finished our update there, we're moving on to our, I always get the acronym wrong, so I'm going to read it directly. CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant Funding, and this is going to be for our public hearing. So Liz, I will let you kind of tee that up.
And I just want to note that we do have our Deputy Planning Director and Sustainability Coordinator, Leslie Stickerman, here. But this is the first of 2 required public hearings on the 2025-26 Annual Action Plan to solicit citizen input and proposals for consideration, and no action is being sought at this time. Approval will be sought for the 2025-2026 Annual Action Plan at the second public hearing scheduled for May 12th, after the public input period has elapsed in order to meet HUD timelines. So you do have Leslie's memo in your board packet, and I did receive a few questions today. The goals of the plan are listed in your packet as well. Goal 1 is to assist with the construction and rehabilitation of affordable housing and lowering the economic barriers to such housing for low and moderate income households.
This includes seniors and persons experiencing homelessness, working with partners including nonprofit affordable housing developers such as Homestretch, public housing organizations like the Traverse City Housing Commission, and nonprofits including local continuum of care organizations, including Goodwill of Northern Michigan and the Coalition to End Homelessness. The second goal of the annual action plan is to support community and economic development projects, including public facility or infrastructure improvements and social services in qualifying low and moderate income areas, working with city parks and recreation and engineering departments to identify high priority infrastructure needs in qualifying low and moderate income areas. And the third goal is to support program administration, including technical assistance with program requirements and environmental reviews as needed, and get expert assistance with training, advocacy, and information sharing relating to further fair housing in compliance with the consolidated plan.
Great. So what I think I will do right now, and I haven't done one of these in a while, so I'm going to look to Benjamin to guide me, is open the public hearing, and I have to just do that as an official. There's no pre-poll that I need to do there, right?
No,
Okay,
you don't
perfect.
have your fancy gavel?
I know I don't have my gavel, so we're going to use the top of my water bottle here on a piece of paper, and we're going to pretend like it's very official. So what happens with a public hearing is I will open the public hearing with my gavel, and anybody who would like to speak about this plan can go up and speak to it. There is no action, there is no motion tonight. This is a chance for the public to share their thoughts on the plan and any projects there within. So that is the standard, and when public comment is exhausted, I will close the public hearing, and we can, address any questions that might have come up or any other part of the conversation, and then that will be it. There is no other action taken tonight on that. So just to clarify the process with everybody, and so with that, I will now open the public hearing.
Great. Anyone who wishes to address the commission on the Community Development Block Grant item, please come to the podium now. Is there anyone? Okay. Seeing no one, Mayor Shammer, you can close the public
All
hearing.
right, glad I didn't get the gavel out for that one, guys. There we go. Public hearing is now closed. So with that, the plan is out there. We've had some study sessions and such on it. I hope everybody can kind of check that out. And then we have, I believe, May 12th is the meeting that we'll be bringing this back for. That will be a deliberative meeting and have some of this conversation. So thank you all for participating in the passively in our public hearing on this item. Commissioner Warner, you were going to put your hand up?
Yeah, if I may, and you can say, no, wait for the next one.
That's fine, go ahead.
Since staff is here, if willing, I'm curious, I didn't read it word for word because it's 37 pages, but I scanned through it, and I'm just not seeing, working with community partners, what are the proposed, top 3 things to spend the money on to address housing, which is goal 1? Are there specific projects that entity, like Homestretch, and we heard about Homestretch before,
Or how the process will work from here if it's
how's the
adopted.
yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Hi, Leslie Sichterman, the Deputy Planning Director. So the annual action plan that's in your packet tonight is a draft. There are a few holes that are still being filled, and I've been working with both our consultant who's been helping administer our program and with the HUD field office to be sure that we have everything in the plan as it's required, but also broadly written enough so that we have enough wiggle room so that throughout the program year we can address what projects come forward that meet the requirements and meet the goals within the plan. So there is a table in there that's blank right now, and it was part of my question to find out how to fill that in so that we're not choosing a specific project, and if that project didn't come to fruition throughout the year, that we would have to amend the plan. So now I do know how to write that, and it would be in keeping with your plan from last year that we're currently working under, where all of the projects are more broadly described. So it would be, for instance, some of the projects that came to light during our steering committee meeting were like the Lot O project with Homestretch, because it's timely, it meets the criteria within the comprehensive plan, and it meets all of the HUD criteria. And that would fall under goal number 1. Also, in talking to representatives from Goodwill, rental subsidies may still be needed for emergency situations to help people get out of a homeless situation, or if they're in a place where they need some emergency assistance, and that also falls under goal 1. So those are the 2 projects that came to light that fit everything, and would fall within this program year. But again, you know, in an attempt to write it in a broad way so that we can be flexible, and if any other projects came to light when we call for projects, like we did this past year, we can address them. So it's really limited this time around to those 3 goal areas, addressing new housing and helping people get into housing. Under goal 1, goal 2 would be community and economic development projects within low and moderate income areas that are designated within our comprehensive plan and our housing needs assessment. And then thirdly, administration of the plan, which also includes some public outreach and training in regards to furthering fair housing initiatives.
Thank you. Very helpful, and I think you answered it toward the end there as far as a call for projects.
Yes.
So is it essentially then a competitive process? Maybe that's not the word that's used, but projects will come in for a certain date that is set when you call for projects, and then those are evaluated on some rubric as far as which are being recommended by staff to fund, as opposed to like a rolling process between now and the fall, where it comes in, it's qualified, you decide, yes, it's worthy of funding.
That was the tack that was taken this year, was to do an RFP, an RFQ, request proposals and projects, and that's what I expect that we'll do again this year. We don't have specific requirements under HUD guidelines, but we do have to meet city contracting rules. And so the way that we're meeting that is to do call for projects in an RFP.
Thank you.
Great. Go ahead, Heather.
Are these the same 3 goals that we had last year?
So if you look at the 5-year plan, there are more goals, and those goals remain, but then there are 3 areas that we are falling within for this year. So, for instance, this year, homeless shelters and addressing needs of the homeless population is not addressed within this annual year plan.
So I hate to ask you to do something else, but I had a really hard time figuring out where the money went last year. Up towards the top, it said maybe 100,000 went to Safe Harbor. Then there's like page 38, support for 89 non-homeless, and then there was also 89 people who got some kind of rental assistance. Are they the same 89 people? So it would be just really nice to see, you know, this is what we did last year. Even though you can't really fill in all the blanks for next year, it's something concrete that we can get our arms wrapped around.
Could we have like a brief or an at a glance, if you will, for the 12th, May 12th?
Yes.
Great.
So what I can provide for you then, which I think you're asking for, is kind of a summary of what was done last year, what those broad goal areas are that were addressed last year, and what is being proposed for this year. Would that work?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, like if we spent this much on rental assistance and we worked with Goodwill, you know.
And and tell me if you disagree, Heather. I don't want to, I'm just piggybacking here, but not try to dictate what you're asking for. I would actually like to see, I mean, so 12th, we're going to be talking about this upcoming one. So making that kind of the executive summary and everything we have, but an appendix or a supporting piece of information might just be that breakdown of here were your priorities and here were how you spent them last year. So I don't think, I'm saying that so you don't feel like you have to wrap the whole narrative together. The narrative can still be about looking forward, but giving us that kind of reference piece for how we did it last year.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that work for you, Heather?
That sounds good. Great.
And we do have a process, if I can just add one quick thing, there is a process through HUD, which is kind of the wrap-up of the past program year to see if we met all of our goals and what we really accomplished. That's called the CAPER, and again, we're still developing this whole program. It's a new program, but that will be due after the end of our first program year at the end of June, and you'll be seeing that as well. And that should also answer a lot of those questions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, but, just, for 200 people were supposedly assisted under priority 2 for $20,000. I mean, how?
Well, hold on, before we get too deep in this is the public hearing. We're going to have this conversation on the 12th as well.
It's just so vague.
Because
so.
it is 9 o'clock at night, I'm going to say if anybody has something that they'd like to ask or request that they'd like to see in on the 12th, let's do that now. Otherwise, we'll have some time in between. And I saw your hand go up, Becky, so I'm not ignoring it. I'm just clarifying. So go ahead.
I just wondered if we could, on the 12th, have some information or insight about, given that this is a federal grant funding, what the current scenarios coming out of Washington, whether is there any expectation of impact? What are our reasons to be optimistic or pessimistic about the funding itself?
Great point to make that part of the conversation.
There's no forthcoming information. If you notice in this annual plan, it does say estimated. That's because we have not been given our allocation yet. Last year it did come late as well, which is why we didn't adopt the plan until August. So we expect it to be coming. There's no reason to think that all the HUD funding will be pulled.
And I think that's the kind of thing of that, but also the 20,000-foot view, I think, of, yes, this program is as a whole safe, our allocation just might change, or this whole program is being investigated or is under scrutiny. We don't even know if it'll be around. And I literally would ask that we get that in May because we don't know what'll change in between now and then. So I would just put that in your cap there to think about as you're getting ready for the 12th, but I think we don't need to hold you to anything you say tonight a month from now.
Okay.
So, all right. Anything else for anybody for Leslie? Thank you so much, Leslie. We appreciate that. We're going to move on to the next item. I did realize I'm very nearsighted. If there are any students who are waiting for signatures, we are on that season. You can get staff over on the side there to sign it. There might not be. I'm just nearsighted, and there's some tall people that are blocking heads, and I can't see everybody. So with that, we will move on to our next item, though, which is a resolution for the Lot O homestretch project. I believe we have an edit that we need to have pointed out in the resolution before we adopt it with a typo. So I will turn that over real quick.
Thank you, Mayor Shamro. The resolution should read that this is a 20-year pilot, not a 30-year pilot.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a 30.
It is
Yeah.
30?
And the typo
Yes, it
was
should
in
be
the
30 years.
memo?
Correct, is a 30-year.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the typo was in the memo then.
Okay. So if you're following at home, the memo said 20 years, the resolution says 30 years. The resolution is correct. It is a 30-year pilot. So with that, this is something we've had recently before us. Do we have any questions on this, or would somebody even like to make the motion?
I'll move that the resolution granting tax exemption for the property at 159 East State Street to Homestretch Nonprofit Housing Corp. At a rate of 4% and a term of not to exceed 30 years be adopted.
Okay, so we've got Treadwell and Mayor Pro Tem. And then please, let's all open up the conversation. I didn't mean to do that, but sometimes we get into conversation and I forget to get a motion from you guys. So go right ahead. Yes, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm going to ask my traditional pilot question, which is, what is the total dollar value of the property tax reduction over that 30-year period?
So we had the opportunity for, I'm sorry, Deb Allen, Assistant City Manager. We had the opportunity for our assessor to take a look at those numbers over the 30 years, and the total number of the reduction in taxes would be $2,381, I'm sorry, $2,381.61 is the total amount.
Thank you.
And that's divided by 30, so that is about $74,000 a year, 75. Go ahead. Ted,
It's
sorry.
a valid question, and thank you for the answer. A former commissioner that sat up here, Brian Haas, used to ask questions. We never really had the opportunity to have the conversation, but it got to what is the cost to the city of somebody living someplace? So to me, what I think of here with Lot O, once there are people living there in their homes, what's the cost to the city of living there? And that's why we have the pilot. It's a payment in lieu of taxes, so it's not that they're living there for free. There's this payment, and utilities are paid because we pay for utilities. They won't have to have leaf pickup because they're right downtown. Many other things. So it's not to say, oh, this covers it, but my approach, looking at it a different way, is that I'm not personally too concerned that people are will be living there for free, but to date, I've yet, the city, we just haven't taken on the endeavor of trying to figure out how much will it cost the city for somebody to live here. But that's what's in my head, and I'm not too concerned that the cost of the city is very much greater than what will be paid by the folks living there.
Appreciate it.
And just the lot itself right now is tax exempt, so we are not receiving any taxes on that property.
And I will just say too that I think this gets into we talk about development and developers, and that is how we get these things done. And I see every year, every time we get a pilot, there's always the occasional comment of, this is a handout to developers. But we've talked about I agree, but we've talked about this and just because we're having these bigger conversations tonight, pilots are payment in lieu of taxes, like Commissioner Warner just said. They are set at a certain percentage. We know, especially around here, how hard it is to do a construction season, the cost of land and everything else. So that is what these are there for. So they are to encourage developers to create a housing stock that we need. I would not say it's a handout. There's a lot of hoops they have to jump through. There's a lot of agencies that they have to go with that kind of support the scoring matrix for the pilots that we put out. We talk about these a lot. We use the alphabet soup a lot, but this is a night where we're talking a lot about a lot of these big concepts. So I just wanted to take a second and kind of have that pause that maybe we haven't actually had the acronym spelled out and the function of it in years, probably, because we use it all the time. So any other questions at this time? Go ahead, Jackie.
I was going to ask if it's possible to translate some of the percentages that are noted in the proposal into actual numbers. We're talking about some people who would be potential tenants who might earn 30% of AMI, some who might earn 100 or 120% of AMI. I know we're aiming for 30% of income as a cost of rent per month. Is it possible to translate those percentages into, okay, someone could be earning $25,000 a year and be paying $600 a month in rent? And you don't have to answer now, but I think it would be helpful for people to understand the proposal a bit more deeply if it had those kinds of facts associated with it. And maybe it's just not possible. So.
Well, I was able to share your questions with John Stimson, who's here with us. So I don't know, John, if you can speak to that specifically or not.
And I was going to say, didn't you touch on this a little in your presentation, John? So you might even know them off the top of your head here.
Not quite, but each project is a little bit different. I do want to speak just to the rents themselves, not the income, and you can do the math. Typically this rent that I'm going to give you would represent 30% of the person's total household income, right, on a gross basis. But you say, okay, what is 30% going to mean for the rents? What does that translate to? So a studio at 30% AMI at Lot O is going to be $429 per month, and that's excluding utilities. So utilities would be about $100, give or take, above that.
Really quickly though, and I ask this because I think this gets into the problem we have sometimes too. What AMI is that being based on?
30%.
Okay, the 30% AMI, sorry, my brain went numb for a minute.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify that because people will say, well, that's not affordable now, but you're about to get into what that looks like, so I wanted to tee that up.
Very affordable.
Yeah.
So 30% AMI studios at 429. One bedrooms are 451 per month. Two bedrooms are 533 per month. Extremely affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go up to about double that to 60% AMI. And that probably is the biggest need in any community that we've worked in. It's huge. You get more applications at 60 than you do at 80 or 120. So 60% AMI studios are 958 per month. One bedrooms are 1,018 per month. Two bedrooms are 1,214 per month. So 2 people in a 2-bedroom or 4 people in a 2-bedroom. All right. Does that answer it?
It does. Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to say that too, because I think that gets into, we hear people in these meetings sometimes say, you know, well, rent should be $1,000 or, you know, $800 or $1,200. And they, to be honest, they should be. But that's talking about 60% of the average median income is setting that price that is in the affordable range by a lot of the standards that we have out there. And so I point that out again as we have these larger conversations when something's going for $1,500 rent that might be 80% AMI on a different project. That's still a deal compared to the market rate around here. But this project in particular is giving us some really good range of that 30 to 60% that's always needed.
That's true. That's true. And there will be some market rate, but the market rate in most respects are going to be about $1,500 to $1,800 per month. And 120% AMI would probably be $2,300 per month.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the market rate that we have to analyze and find out what the market will bear for that specific unit. If I can, I just want to do 2 things. You mentioned the pilot being for 30 years, maximum, right? And in fact, we're going to be asking on our scoring criteria for our application to extend this affordable housing for 45 years. So we have an optional point or and a half or so. If we go to that extent, we can get those points to get this project funded. And it's all about scoring, so why not? I mean, if Homestretch had a way of doing it for 200 years, we would, but 45 is about palatable. So I would ask that you change the language to say no more than 45 or the maximum of 45 years.
We've got our attorney raising her hand, so I'm going to listen to her.
It's worded as it always is for the life of the mortgage or 30 years, whichever is longer. And so if the funding comes through as longer, then that would be the number. And typically what happens, and I'm not binding you to this, Mr. Stimson, but usually what happens is when the mortgage is up, there's a refinance through MSHDA, and then there's a new MSHDA mortgage, and then it's extended. That's what we usually have seen. So the pilots will continue with the life of the MSHDA funding for the new mortgage again.
And that's why we have
That
in-house
makes sense.
counsel here tonight. Go ahead, Heather.
So what makes this project different from the Trailside project where we
That
lost?
wasn't under this, though.
Yes, but we could, the mortgage runs out and you decide to sell to another entity, and what protects this Lot O from what happened at Trailsides?
Well, number one, we have a development agreement with the city. The city is going to bind us to that development agreement. And then number two, Homestretch does have the first right of refusal out of a partnership agreement that we're going to entertain with another co-developer. You know, Homestretch isn't strong enough to do this completely on its own. We would need 10% liquidity for the construction team. We would need personal guarantees, or we could ask the city to make a guarantee that the mortgage is going to be guaranteed. What I'm trying to get at is that we need a partner, whether it's the city, which we are in a development agreement under, and you've heard in the past that, well, we've partnered with Wallet Communities, or we've partnered with this entity. we've had no control in some of those partnerships. And for an example, we would get 35% control of the development, and the other for-profit developer would get 65 or 70%. We're done with that. I'm happy to announce tonight that we have partnered with Cole Investments and Cheryl McCallum, our consultant that brought him to the table. This is Tom Lapka. He has performed our first LIHTC application that was the Keystone development back about 17 years ago. We've asked him to come back and help us partner on this. He is willing to do it for 20% of the development agreement. So Homestretch is in control of this project at this point. I mean, it's a huge, huge revelation. So I'm glad that we held out. Everything seems to be coming together. So Cheryl McCallum is here tonight on behalf of Cove and her team to partner with Homestretch with you guys. I know that was a long answer, or maybe not even an answer, but this project is very unique. It has a commercial component, right? A food market. It has a tunnel going through it, which is really a public space to traverse into the parking lot to the north. It has 4 stories of affordable housing or attainable housing. It's a concrete podium with light framed and mass timber on top of 4 stories. We're going to try to put some kind of rooftop, area that people can enjoy if we can make that possible. So it's your project. That's what's different. It's Homestretch acting on your behalf to put this project together.
Well, I love the idea of making affordable housing available for downtown service workers, for musicians and artists. There's no greater group that adds some vim to downtown than artists and servers and young people. But I wasn't here in February when you had the initial study session about this, and there was no pilot at that session. The pilot is new at this one, right?
It was discussed, but we did not take action on it. No, that was a
But I didn't, I want to get you, are you truly confident that you can make this project work? Are you still feeling like you've got a lemon and you're going to make lemonade? Because I'm quoting you from that study session. That's what you said. You've got the consideration of the access across the project, you've got the tunnel costs, you've got the construction and trying to accommodate your neighbors, you've got losing 30% of your lot size, your commercial revenue losses of $56,000 a year, you've got the maintenance of the corridor, you've got site costs and stormwater difficulties, you're trying to find a partner, you're going to have to, now you've got a pilot, then you're going to have to take it to a vote of the public for the brownfield. I'll support this if you're truly invested, but maybe you'd like to squeeze out of this project. I heard first right of refusal. The city has first right of refusal, or not,
First right of purchase.
First right of purchase. I mean, maybe you
Well, I'm curious where we're at in that process, though, because this, and I think this is the first time that we're at this point as this collective body. We did this through an RFP process. So Homestretch got it by winning a bid against other partners. And so there does come a point that if there was a failure of meeting the expectations, and sorry, John, I'm using you as an example, I'm not putting this on you.
You're fine.
That would even potentially open us up to opening the RFP back up again if it strays too far from where we started. And my point to all of that is if this doesn't proceed that way, but also I have Lauren checking.
I'm trying to find my file right now.
At the time when this RFP was put out, we were very, and Tim might remember this, we were very adamant that it's the first refusal of the city as well as kind of a deed restriction on it so that Trailside 45 can't really happen. So I'm looking for people who might have recollection of that, and Lauren is trying to dig into her files. But go ahead, Mitch, in the meantime.
Just point of fact, though it is a frequent punching bag, the price, I can correct sentiments that the prices at Trailside 45 have come down substantially. There is currently a unit on the market right now for $219,000, which it makes it the third cheapest housing unit of any type in the city limits.
which is nice when we hear the market do that, but I also understand that we are creating a tax incentive and other things that we're looking for some long-term guarantees on, like we've been discussing. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'm quite confident that legally you're obligated to do what you said is going to happen. I mean, should anything happen, you're obligated. So I'm confident in that. To a point that was made, this pilot does not fall under the brownfield. I thought I saw John Flinch up there when you said that.
Oh, it doesn't?
It
No.
does not. This
that's
is the
lucky.
city's pilot program that was
Right.
developed.
The Beitner property that was presented that same night would have had some brownfield comments on it, so that might be where they converged.
Okay. I thought I saw in there that you needed some.
There is a Brownfield Redevelopment Authority request for public infrastructure related to demolition and potentially sidewalk work, and I could say that the tunnel is a public use, so that might fall under Act 3 criteria that would make it eligible for the BRA to participate, which is what we did at the Carver project. As long as it's eligible and it's legally permissible, then we'll apply for those funds.
Well, I think with a strong argument, you can get a public vote on this that would
Yes.
be positive.
Yes, yes. I'll point out, every project is hugely complicated. I mean, that's affordable housing is the most difficult. If you're a developer, just go out and be a for-profit developer. Market rate is the easiest thing to do. And that's why you see all the developers right now doing 120% AMI. It's the low-hanging fruit. But that doesn't really serve the community as much as your home stretch serves the community. And we're committed to the project, and we'll squeeze it. We won't squeeze out of it, we'll squeeze into it.
I'm glad to hear that.
Do we have any other questions for John while he's standing up there?
Mayor,
Okay, go ahead.
the city does have first right of refusal.
Okay, so that is confirmed. So before it could be sold off and turned into condos or short-term rentals, the city would have the first right of refusal on it. So just to clarify that point. Okay, seeing no other hands up right now, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to public comment. So if you have any public comment on the resolution to support Lotto. Okay, seeing none then, I will bring it back to the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. And now we'll move on. We're moving out of the exciting world of housing and into appointments. And we will start with the Election Commission. We've got a recommendation. Does somebody want to make that motion? Mine's spinning too, so sorry. If anybody's is not spinning at this moment, go
Sure.
ahead, Jackie, thank you.
I recommend that Chris Campbell be reappointed to the term expiring December 13th, 2027 on the Election Commission, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Werner, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you for that. Any further comment on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and now we'll move on to the Historic Districts reappointment. And this was Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, Commissioner Shaw, and Commissioner Treadwell. Do we have any comments or motion?
Move that Colleen Shannon be reappointed to the term expiring June 30, 2028 on the Historic Districts Commission as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Pro Tem Mark Wilson, Commissioner Heather Shaw, and Commissioner Mitch Treadwell.
Support.
Okay. Any other comments on this item? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The Housing Commission reappointment, just to refresh everybody's memory, this was the one where we had an open conversation in a meeting that this has not been, it legally cannot be appointed to a city commissioner, but the commission decided that they thought it was still a good idea that we proceeded to have a commissioner as our citizen appointment for one of these seats. So the recommendation came through that we would recommend Commissioner Treadwell to continue serving on that. So if somebody, well, I'll actually make it if somebody wants to say they did. Mitch made the motion that Mitch Treadwell be appointed to the term expiring November 30, 2029 on the Election Commission. That's not right, it's the Housing Commission, right? Yeah. Sorry, that was a typo, I'm tired. Housing Commission as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Shamro, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and Commissioner Warner. Does somebody want to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion.
Second?
Support.
Okay. Any further comment on this? Go ahead, Jackie.
I just have a question for our city attorney. Isn't there a case with Grand Traverse County over appointing a commissioner to a citizen's spot on, I guess it would be a different agency's board, but Beta?
It was an agency that
Is
they
this
already have
different?
representation
Tell me
on.
this is different.
Yeah.
Right, and it's a little bit confusing because HUD has sort of an unwritten preference or rule that they don't want to have a standing committee seat reserved for a city commissioner on this commission, but it's okay with them if a city commissioner is appointed, just not to have a policy of holding a seat open for a city commissioner. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Okay, we
It
did
makes
have
sense to HUD.
Yes.
Okay.
And we did have this conversation before the ad hoc was formed, and the ad hoc was a public interview meeting, so we did go through, just to clarify with everybody, we did go through the entire process per our
Thank
rules
you.
too. Yep. Okay, any other comments on this?
Yeah, I can elucidate a little bit more about the county and Beta situation.
Well,
But-
no, Mitch, let's not get into that.
Okay.
It's 9:30 at night. I appreciate you doing great regard, and I have great regard for you, but it's 9:30 at night. But
enough.
we'll let our attorney have handled that one. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. And TC Arts Commission reappointment. Looks like we've got that. Does somebody want to make that motion? Go ahead, Tim.
I'll make the motion that Roger Amundson be reappointed to the term expiring April 4th, 2028 on the TC Arts Commission as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Werner, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and Commissioner Shaw.
Support.
All right. Any comment on this? Any public comment on this? Going to bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Just to remind everybody, it is a little quiet here tonight, so if we are going to have conversations, either keep them very low or maybe take them out into the lobby, please. Coast Guard City, next one here, and my leading. So it's to establish an ad hoc interview committee, so this one has not been appointed yet. It's to establish the committee. Does someone want to make that motion? Go ahead, Tim, and then Jackie.
I'll make the motion that the City Commission Ad hoc Interview Committee be established to make a recommendation regarding 2 appointments to the Coast Guard City Committee, term expiring August 25th, 2028, currently held by Stan Simons and Steve Perdue, and that Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, Commissioner Stanley, and Commissioner Treadwell be appointed to such committee with Commissioner Stanley as chair.
Support.
Thank you both for that. Any further comment on that item? Seeing none, any public comment on that? Seeing none, bring it back. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So we'll move on now to the reports and correspondences, and has become our custom. Does anybody have something they'd like to report out from their boards? And I'll start at the end with Jackie and work in.
Just to report that there has not been a meeting of the Planning Commission. Our scheduled meeting of April 1st was canceled, so we haven't taken any actions since our last report at the March 18th special meeting.
Well, we
and this
haven't
is-
had a meeting since March 18th.
This is
That's
a
what I was
good,
trying to say.
yeah.
Did I not say that?
You
No,
did. I was gonna say, this is a no news is
Okay.
good. Hold on. This is a good no news is
Oh,
good
there
news,
you
so
go.
let's move on from that. That's great. Spring break always messes everybody's schedule up. So go ahead. Did you have anything to report out, Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes, it's been a couple weeks since then. I attended the Michigan Municipal League's Capital Convention after our last meeting back in mid-March, and had a great opportunity to connect with other local leaders across Michigan, and specifically connect with some of the folks that might be in northern Michigan, but Sault Ste. Marie is still a couple hours away, so it's hard to check in and see how their local government is going on a daily basis. But also, we've had a Housing Commission meeting, and as a Housing Commissioner, I can report that we're moving along well on multiple projects. We've got the Orchard View project on Carter Road that we are compiling funding for. We are for the Parkview, which is by where the former Tebow florist sits. That construction is well underway. and the first stage of Flatsett Carriage Commons, which is the property in partnership with Beta on Lafreniere. The first stage is almost completed, and we are working through our waiting list to fill those units up.
Fantastic, great news, thank you. Any other reports at this time? It has been, we did have spring break and a kind of weird fifth Monday in there, so I think a lot of our boards had a little breathing room, and so hopefully everybody enjoyed that. And with that, then, I will now move into public comment, and we have reserved public comment. So, Mr. Robbins, would you like to kick us off here?
So much. It's a lesson in perseverance. Great work. Thank you for the time today, and good evening to you and also everyone else. We have quite a contingent that are watching this on closed circuit. Good evening. And my name is Richard Robbins. I'm here on behalf of the Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance. Just to ground everybody, we are really here to engage our community in the development of safe, non-motorized movement across the city, across Traverse City. Well, we've certainly grown since the last time I've given updates. We now have a website, and so for each of you and those listening on closed circuit, please go to gtsafestreets.org or gtsafestreets.com. They're connected. Take a look at it. It's a very interactive website. Thanks to our newest Alliance member, Noah Roth, and his company, Streetcraft, it's a very interactive site for you to take a look at what we're trying to accomplish. So anyway, one of the things you can do is sign up for updates as well as understand kind of what we're doing. Quick introduction for today's 15 minutes. Want to quickly introduce to many of you in the crowd as well as on the closed circuit who we are. Then also get into a list of quick hits we've developed for the Traverse City itself. And then our 2x4 vision, which we'll talk about, and then some next steps. Our Alliance members are 8 very significant members of our community that represent hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of TC residents that are very active. They range from cyclists to pedestrians to runners and to the disabled. The mission statement we have, I'm not going to read the whole thing for this evening, but it's really to establish safe and effective non-motorized transportation corridors. That's really what we're focused on and what we're going to bring to our discussions in the coming years and months and years. We're not prescribing solutions. I want to make this very clear. We're not coming to you with canned solutions to specific problems. We're here to state the problem and provide visualizations and start the collective solution development with the community. We are focused on it to be a positive and supporting group to move this objective forward. So our current efforts to date are we've gotten to know the city staff, the commission, met with the engineering department, the planning department, several other departments, actually MDOT, local road commissions, the Safe Streets Initiative here, for the ad hoc committee, and also we're expanding into interested parties. So we're going to be including the neighborhood associations with our efforts, as well as Beta and others that will be bringing into the fold of the discussion. So our initial efforts are we've developed a list of quick hits, and this was developed in an effort by soliciting all of our membership and our donors, as well as the staff of our Alliance members. And what we've done is identified some immediate, very significant safety issues in Traverse City that we'd like to make the City Commission as well as city staff aware of, and work collaboratively to try to solve those as quick as possible. And then we have a 2x4 vision, which is what we want to help to define in the next 3 years is 2 east-west and 4 north-south safe, protected or delineated transportation corridors for pedestrians, runners, cyclists, and the disabled. And that's what our goal is in the vision. We'll talk about that in a minute. So what I want to really talk about is these quick hits. The objective is some things that are fairly low cost to the city to be able to move forward with fairly quickly. It's a curated list, and we've had several locations identified. As you see on the map, they're pretty well dispersed around the city. These were, again, solicited from our members and from, frankly, people who have had been significantly impaired in some of these locations through either accidents or injury. And so the full list of these can be found at gtsafestreets.org. Within them, there are really effective visualizations of current situations and potential new situations or solution approaches that might be implemented. And so we've done this in a kind of a phased approach today. We're going to give you 3 examples, one that's low cost, low effort, mid-cost, mid-effort, and a little higher cost and higher effort. The first one we're going to talk about is, oops. All right, let me go back.
Don't want to look at that.
Right.
First one is the Franklin Street. So this is a great example of where your Mobility Action Plan has already called this out a long time ago, and actually consultant costs placed this at about $2,271.25 in order to implement. So what this is a corridor that is between Franklin Street and, or between 8th Street and the railroad track and the Boardman Loop Trail. And this is the ability to be able to connect 2 very successful projects and transportation corridors we already have in the Boardman Loop Trail and 8th Street with a safe environment for all of those that are using those 2 and connecting them together. It could be implemented as early as May of this year, and if needed, could be removed by November. It could be a good pilot for us. It would provide an opportunity, 1, to pilot the solution with counters to determine usage statistics. It also is a connection between 2 very well-used corridors, but it also provides a real safe passage specifically for Norte, because one of the key things we all enjoy about our community is the ride leaders and the kids in the spring, summer, and fall that are led by Norte ride leaders. There's a real concern for them, and they've expressed a concern of safety as they move from the Boardman Loop Trail to 8th Street. So that's one example that you'll see as
I don't want to steal too much of your time, but I just wanted you to ask, because you're giving examples, what is the proposal for $2,000 there? You said here's the corridor and had a picture, but what are you actually proposing for the $2,000 there?
So the $2,000 that was called out and actually priced out in the Mobility Action Plan is for flexible delineators and paint.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you, perfect. That's,
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that, thank you.
Which is really cool. So we can do a pilot fairly quickly and be able to determine, the effectiveness, pretty quickly. The second one, we've talked about it before. While it's not a specific location, it's a citywide problem. So here's a most recent example is an aerial view of Union Street and Front Street. Can you tell me where are the pedestrian crosswalks? Or how about the cycle tracks? If you can't tell me, how can the motorists? This is a very unsafe situation, and it's gotten worse all across the city. Here's Woodmere and 8th Street. And the challenge here is we understand that city engineering and the city staff have been working diligently to try to figure out a lower cost painting approach. There's been changes in the types of paint to use, and we understand that. There's some trials going on. But this is a public safety issue, number 1. And we believe that a committed and rigorous painting schedule as directed by the City Commission to city staff is really required here. It would provide the following: safety for pedestrians, runners, cyclists, and the disabled. It would change attitudes and culture of drivers, because drivers, as they see fresh painted areas, they slow down. It changes culture, it changes mindset. It also provides a significant advantage for seeing impaired. I didn't know this, but Elena Leahy, who's the executive director at the Disability Network, shared with me that seeing eye dogs are trained to cue off of those bright white stripes. And if they're not there, they can't determine where to cross with the owners. It's a real issue. So this is a fairly quick hit opportunity for the commission to direct and make determinations for the city, our city staff to provide the funding to get this done as soon as possible. The third one is a little more expensive initiative, but very dangerous as well, and that's the pedestrian crossing for the TART Trail just north of the Hannah intersection on Garfield. This is one where, as you take a look at the conflict here, is that even though the north and southbound are at a red light, and people believe that are crossing the TART Trail that they're safe to cross, and I've had this happen to myself, is I'm halfway across and a left or right-hand turn vehicle from Hannah comes racing around the corner and almost get hit. And so this is really one of those challenges we have in this intersection, and it's really based on outdated signal technology. With changes in signal technology along with a pedestrian crossing signal, we can greatly improve that. And this can be done fairly quickly with that type of commitment by the commission to direct the funding needed for the city staff. And now, the website we have, when you get to the website, take a look at this, this example. We have a great interactive video that kind of walks you through kind of the key pieces of this. So our quick hits next steps are, you'll see on the website, we've got about 12.5 of these visualizations of all of these areas that we talked about. And what we'd like to do is work with city staff to sit down and prioritize, come up with investments required, resources and timing, and come back to the commission sometime in the May-June timeframe for some specific commitments by the commission to make some of these safety recommendations happen. So now we're going to talk about the 2x4 vision, and that's where we talked about this concept of having 2 east-west and 4 north-south protected, safe transportation corridors for non-automotive users. Now, before I start with that, I want to really pay homage to the fact that we've got a good start. You know, the Bayfront Trail, 8th Street, these are good pieces that we can start working with. And kudos to the commission and to the city and to the residents for having the foresight to put these in at the time that they did. And also recognizing the fact that sometimes when we do these things, if we get 80% of what we're trying to do, that's a win. The Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance will be working not only to help get those wins and to help put the groups together and get the conversation going, but we're also going to help work on those 10 to 20% that we have to come back to kind of get some of these things finished. But the 2x4 vision is this concept of protected corridors throughout the city. You'll notice this diagram does not prescribe any specific street. What we're saying is we're not the experts. We have some great people on our city staff, engineering, planning, that we can work with, as well as external stakeholders, to be able to work to identify which of these roads would be east-west and north-south corridors. So the implementation is, what we'd like to do is work with all of the stakeholders and develop a corridor plan by the fall of this year. Define what those streets are, so that when we start to improve streets or even have minor fixes to streets, what we can do is look to the plan and start incrementally adding to that plan in order to get to the point that in 2028 we have east-west and north-south corridors where we can ask or tell our 8-year-old child, yeah, you can go on over to Munson from the library because you can take the corridor and you have a safe passage to get there, or the 80-year-old. And then what we're going to do is we'd like to have this plan done and on the wall out here somewhere that we all look at on a regular basis so we know where we're going. And we also, all of the public knows where we're going. And then from that, in 2026, we can start doing some of these pilot rollouts and use those in order to validate which areas that we want to have our protected corridors. Here's a great one that's a great example from Newport, Kentucky. The residents got together and they went to the city council and they just got approval to put in cones, paint, cinder blocks, and a sign in order to just do some pilots. And they determined to determine what type of usage they would get. And this is the type of thing that we will help to coordinate and work with the city and be really the group that pulls together all of the conversations and the work to make some of these things happen. Our goals.
Mr. Robbins, I'm sorry,
Oh.
but there is a 15-minute time allotment, and that time
Okay.
for you has elapsed. Thank you.
I will give you another minute and a half if you want to go over your goals in the speediest way you
Yeah,
can.
no, I got two.
Like-
I have it fairly quick. We have, our goals are real physical safety improvements, open communication. What we're here to be is the voice of the public. And the two asks that we really have for the commission is, number one, for those of you that are online or here, go to gtsafestreets.org, sign up for updates, as well as take a look at the website and the visualizations. And for the commission, we're asking you for your commitment moving forward to an honest, hardworking, and committed approach for developing safe, effective, non-motorized corridors.
Thank you so much, Mr. Robbins.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was a reserved public comment. We don't get those very often. We do get them periodically. You can go to the clerk's office if you ever want to do those. Now, if anybody wants to make a general 3-minute public comment about anything, could be talked about tonight, could be anything in general on your mind, now is your opportunity, if anybody wants to do that. Also recognizing it is 10 to 10, so how motivated are people to talk at this point? No, we're just going to do our regular public comment here. Yes, you could go up and talk about it.
Commissioners, Lance Bomer, 1133 Santos Street. I know it's super late, but who is here to support this, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I would encourage all of you to also go to the Open to the Public ad hoc meeting for Complete Streets. It's the second Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. Just Wednesday, sorry, what is today? Wednesday. It's the second Wednesday or Tuesday?
We'll,
Wednesday. Yeah, I think Wednesday.
Wednesday
I
says
don't
the
know.
ad hoc members. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go to the Complete Streets ad hoc meeting. Commissioners Shaw and Werner, you're doing a good job. So, yeah, thanks.
I'll be there next time.
Okay. Any other comment? Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all for hanging tight till the reserved public comment and showing your support. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting for this evening. Have a great night, everybody.
Okay.
I know. I know.
Good job.